Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank all of you to tonight's meeting, there you go. Tonight's meeting tonight of October 18th, 2022, at our regularly scheduled board meeting. And at this time, I would like to call the meeting to order, and I would ask that those of you who can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, roll call.
Trustee Voorhees.
Present.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
Trustee Powell.
Here.
Trustee Ruggles.
Here.
Clerk Noble here. Treasurer Roman.
Here.
And Supervisor Kowal.
Here. All present and accounted for. I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda, looking for support.
Support.
I have motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it. Item number 5, public comment. Public comment, you will have to raise your hand, identify yourself for the recorder, and you will have 3 minutes to state your business. At this time, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak? Okay. Laura? You have to come to the podium because they can't pick you up otherwise.
Official. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Laura Balliard. I'm the director of the Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce, and I just wanted to go on record thanking White Lake Township and the White Lake Historical Society for partnering with us on the recent Trunk or Treat event. It was a huge success, and we've been really anxious to do something with something larger of community event in the White Lake community. And Supervisor Kowal, is Justin at the meeting?
He's not here tonight.
Justin was amazing, and my new friend, Kelly, I feel like we knocked it out of the park. Greg Baroni and the whole Historical Society, his wife, Barb, Sue Vanderwill, we just had an amazing group of people, and we couldn't have done it without the township support. So we really appreciate all that you did with donations, with volunteers, with your time. It was a really great event, and it was really fun to do something with the township. So I just wanted to kind of go on record from the chamber and say thanks for allowing us, to the township and the Historical Society, to partner on this. I think it turned out really well. We had a great time. So thanks for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time? The gentleman in the gray hair back there. Okay. I couldn't pass that up.
I was gonna.
Mr. Baroni.
Good evening, everyone. As all of you know, I'm Greg Baroni, 2501 Bogey Lake Road, current president of the White Lake Historical Society. As Laura pointed out, we had a fantastic event over at the Fisk Farm. We tried to do community events for the community as well as the neighboring communities. And I've got a list of people I'd like to thank. Lakes Area Chamber, White Lake Township, Park and Rec Department, the Police Department, the Fire Department, the CERT team, Walmart, Meijer, Ruggles Farm Market. Let me tell you about Ruggles Farm Market. They sent over donuts from your newly opened cider mill. They were awesome. I had the opportunity to have one. They were the hottest commodity on the property that night. So thank you very much. Beauchamp's Water of Waterford, Dance Dynamics, Flagstaff rather, American House West Bloomfield, CNS Healthcare Michigan, Spencer Knish Construction or Spencer Roofing, Keller Williams Showcase, J. Renee Darnham, Brookdale Novi, R.W. Squires and Associates, RFC Urgent Care of Commerce, Dance Dynamics, which sent over 12 of their dancers, and they were our docents for the evening. They were in each one of the buildings being our docents. They did an awesome job as usual. And Pet Supply Plus. Now, if you hadn't had the opportunity to see our Facebook website, please go to it, because there was a lady there, and I got to give her a shout out. Her name was Melissa Smith. She did a Facebook video, 3 or 4 of them actually, that could show you everything that was going on at the farm. So if you have the opportunity, take a look at our Facebook website and check out the videos that she supplied us with. They are awesome. Once again, thank you to everybody that participated. And hopefully next year we'll have even a better turnout, but this one was awesome. And if I would like to go back to the Fisk Farm Festival, which was probably about a month before the Halloween event, that festival, we had 1,700 people a Saturday, and we had 850 people join us on Sunday. Now, Sunday's event was a little bit shortened because of the weather, but there was another great event that the White Lake Historical Society does. And like I said, we usually have 8, 9 different events throughout the year for the community as well as the neighboring communities. And I'd like to thank once again everybody for their support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barone. Anyone else at this time? Yes.
I'm Karen Law. I'm a resident of White Lake Township. I'm on the board, or the advisory board, for the Dublin Center, but I'm here tonight on behalf of a group of senior citizens to let you know what we think of Kathy Gordon-Air. First of all, because of Kathy and her staff and what she does for us, we are less isolated and less lonely than we would be without her. She provides a place for us to go, an opportunity to form new friendships as our old friendships fall away. She gives us activities like exercise, music, art, dancing, cards, games, discussion groups, support groups. She's increased our community mobility through her efforts with VODA. We've been provided current training, and this is so important, we feel, current training and awareness of fraud, of scams, self-defense, estate planning, Medicare and Medicaid changes, spousal support groups. If we become ill, there's a card, so we're not alone at home. If we're missing, if we don't show up for a couple days, there's either a call or a visit from them. She grounds us, she centers us, and she gives us a purpose when we need it. And that's what I'd like you to know about her. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Seeing none, I will close public comment and move on to consent agenda. Looking for a motion. Mr. Powell.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion, looking for support. Support. I have support. Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Number 7, minutes. Approval of minutes, regular board meeting of September 20th, 2022. Questions or comments from the board? Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve minutes of September 20th, 2022.
I have a motion to approve. Looking for support.
Down here.
I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Andrea, thank you. Motion and support. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Next item, public hearing. To hear public comment regarding approval of the 2023 township budget. At this time, this floor will open to the public and the public only for comment on the 2023 proposed budget, if there is any from the public at this time. So at this time, I will make a motion to go into public hearing on the budget for 2023 for the Township of White Lake. I'll make that in the form of a motion. Looking for support.
Support.
I have motion, I have support from Trustee Smith. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kowa,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
At this time, if there's anyone from the public that has a comment on the proposed 2023 budget for the Township of White Lake, which is balanced, please do so at this time. You will need to come up to the podium to state your name for the record. Long as 10 seconds. Seeing none, I will make a motion to close the public hearing. Looking for support.
Support.
I have motion, I have support. All in favor? Aye. The public hearing is closed. We will address the budget shortly thereafter under new business. Old business, consideration of preliminary plan for site approval of Avalon. Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and Board. Before you tonight for consideration, again, is the Avalon project. For those of you who may not recall, back in July, the applicant was here seeking preliminary site plan approval and rezoning. At that time, you moved the rezoning piece of his request to second reading and kind of sent him back with some direction on some changes you would like to have made to the plan based on the discussion that night. The staff spent quite a good deal of time with the applicant over the last couple of months working on some of those changes, and the memo you have before you tonight from our office highlights a few of those, or several of those. I would like to primarily call out the fact that the single-family homes on the east side, there was a reduction in, bless you, a number of units from 81 down to 68. I think they originally started with 87 units in the very first iteration that was the Planning Commission. And then on the west side for the multiple family, they're now at 394 units. They were previously at 393, down from 406 the first time the Planning Commission saw this project. A couple of other comments had to do with just sort of tidying up some of the calculations in the parallel plan, which I believe they've done. Again, the parallel plan is a plan that they do based on them just moving ahead with a straight rezoning project instead of going through a PD, plan development. So that kind of sets their density. One of the other comments that was mentioned was that the Hill Road corridor, at least on the west side, there was for the two-story units, which are, if you look at the screen, lined up right here, they're 12 plexes. They were 50 feet, which was an appropriate setback, but one of the comments made was that there needed to be, I guess, a better view shed down Hill Road of landscaping and buffering. And so now along this stretch by the 12 plexes, along the 12 plexes, there is a 100-foot buffer or setback from the road or the road right of way. Up here at the north end, it's closer to 50 feet where there are ranch or one-story apartments. Those won't have such an impact because it won't be 2 stories, but that's another big change from the last plan. I think the last item was there was a concern about the lot size on the single-family side on the east side. I don't think that they were quite to 70 feet. Now, the minimum size is a 70-foot wide lot, and I think the average is more like 78 feet. So they increased both the square footage and the width of those parcels. And as you may recall, along Hill Road, there were some single-family homes that had some driveways out directly to Hill Road. Those lots were many of the lots that were removed. So the project is back before you with those major changes. They're still seeking PD approval, preliminary site plan approval for the PD, as well as second reading, which is on your agenda tonight, for the rezoning of both the east and west side of the road. If you have any questions for me, I would be happy to answer them. I know the applicants are here and able to present to you or answer any questions you might have as well, but that's my brief summary, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. O'Neill, could you repeat the reduction on both parcels?
So on the west side, they went from, initially it was 406 units at the Planning Commission. They reduced it to 393 when you saw them back here in July. They're now at 394, so an addition of 1 unit on the west side at this point from your last visit. And I believe their parallel plan shows that they're about 100 units below what they could achieve through straight RM2 zoning.
Based on the density and the zoning.
Right, so at the staff level, we're not concerned about the density.
Correct.
We do agree with the comments made regarding the view shed down Hill Road, so I think that that was a major change in the west side, was the 100-foot setback from Hill Road. On the east side, the original number was 87 when it was at the Planning Commission, 87 units. When they were here before you were there, they were at 81 units, and today they're asking for, the plan is for 68 units.
How many, I beg your pardon?
68?
68 units.
68, down from 81 the last time you saw it, and from 87 from the very first
But I
plan.
thought I heard, but I wasn't sure.
That's
so,
right.
Okay. that's a
Can I just ask
considerable.
one clarification on what you said before we dive in? You said many of the driveways have been removed from Hill Road or all?
I may have said that, but I should say that all of them were, and I could probably scroll through this 170-page packet and probably pull that up. I think they're maybe both in here, and I can look and show you. My computer can keep up. I may have to go back to the other packet.
I think it's all, but I think you
It's all.
maybe just
In
misspoke
short,
and
it's-
said many. Okay.
If I said, I think what I meant to say is many of the units, the reduced units, you'll probably notice that many of them came from, I think there were 8 of them out on Hill Road. So a good chunk of that reduction from 81 down to 68 really came from, most noticeably, that Hill Road frontage.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so there has been a genuine effort on the developer's part to have a lessened impact on the area and has met some of all of the design parameters as far as density goes. There's no issue with that. I know that Mr. Powell had a very strong interest in the project itself and essentially, was very interested was the larger setbacks, which I agree, it tends to lend itself a little bit more into that area and tends to make it a little more private and less visually impactful on the immediate area. Anyone at the board have a question or comment at this time on what is presented before us? Mr. Roman.
Just one quick question, Sean. I forget, were there sidewalks within the single-family area?
There's sidewalks throughout both sides.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, the infamous Mr. O'Neill sidewalks.
Oh, yeah. 10-acre lots, sidewalks. I want to also acknowledge Mr. Powell. The applicants did a nice job of providing us with information and meeting with us and keeping us updated on the changes they're making. And Mr. Powell volunteered his time to sit down with the staff because he did have several comments at the last meeting. And so he worked kind of with this working group to make the plan a better plan than it was last time you saw it. And so I want to acknowledge not only the applicant's efforts, but Mr. Powell's efforts in helping as well.
Correct. Anyone else on the board have a comment?
I'd like to hold mine until after the developer has an opportunity to present.
Okay. Anyone else on the board? This time, Mr. Delbert, if you care to come forward to the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. I don't have so much of a presentation because Sean, I think, has summarized things quite well in terms of where we've been together with staff and with Mike's help. But I would ask Sean if you would bring up the graphic of our landscape buffer plan, that's the color plan of the Hill Road frontage. As Sean has stated, we concentrated on the comments that were made by staff and the suggestions, constructive suggestions that we got from staff and from Mike Powell. And we reduced the number of lots in the single-family sub. It's there, Sean. I saw it a few minutes ago.
Did I zip? I saw it too.
I think it's before the house elevations.
I think if you go down to the page numbering and just type 150, you should get there, because that's where I'm looking on the
I
agenda.
don't know if I know how to do that right.
Right here.
Yeah, but that's still,
Just backspace that out there.
so I go to the HTML, I open the packet differently, so
Oh. I'm on the website.
you're probably you're not on the HTML. All right, if Jim maybe sing a song or something for a second.
You wouldn't want that to happen.
Yeah.
You're almost there, Sean.
It's,
Almost there. It's only a couple pages. There it is.
Computer is slow. It's not me, it's the computer.
okay,
Believe me.
there you go. It's an illustration of the increased setback and landscape berming and so forth that we'll be doing along Hill Road to cause a separation from the road as it's traveled, to soften the impact of the buildings and so forth. We're quite accustomed to doing that sort of thing, and if you've seen any of our other communities, whether it's in Commerce or Novi or what have you, it's very typical of what we've done in those situations. We're sensitive to it from the standpoint of the community, to the traffic, and to the residents as well. We took the opportunity to rethink the single family, to reduce the number of lots, to eliminate the 8 lots that were on Hill Road, we were going to do private drive, or internal driveways. They weren't going to back right out onto Hill Road, but nonetheless, the subdivision will be better for it because it will cause a greater buffer from Hill Road on that side, on the east side to the subdivision. We took the opportunity to increase the lot frontages, and at Mike Powell's suggestion, we did test plot plans on a series of lots to make sure that the homes we're intending to build fit in the building envelopes, that we wouldn't potentially be encroaching in wetlands or wetland buffers and the like. This is still at the preliminary stage. We've all got a long ways to go as we go through the final site plan and the engineering. But I think we've made substantial improvements to the plan, not only on the west side of Hill Road and the buffering, but along the way, we also included the rework of the entrance into the development, that it's loosened it up. We've got a further setback from M59. We have a large buffer setback on our north property line, holding the buildings 100 feet or more off of our property line, and it's nearly 200 feet from the first of our structures to the adjoining residence. And again, what we're looking for, what we're seeking this evening, is a consensus on the preliminary plan so that we can move together towards a final plan. I would be happy to answer any specific questions that anyone has. I think the numbers speak for themselves of where we've been, and we're prepared to move forward with working together with staff and your engineer as we go through the final site plan and engineering process. Thank you.
Very good. And at this time, questions? Mr. Powell.
Mr. Galbraith, just a couple questions. Back in our discussions, we were talking about in the single-family home section, this is the section east of Hill Road, we had talked about the potential, knowing that the R1D requirement is 10-foot side yard setbacks from the property lines to the structure, and an 80-foot wide lot. Because this is a PD, you're asking the board to approve a 70-foot wide lot minimum, some of them over that, but 70-foot wide minimum, and a 7.5-foot side yard setback. I know that the fire department's very concerned about getting their firefighting apparatus and having access between homes. The ordinance requires 20 feet between structures. We had talked about in our little subcommittee making it 16 feet as part of the PD. You are presenting a 15-foot between structures or a 7.5-foot side yard setback. I didn't understand why, and I thought maybe you could share that.
Well, we had discussed 8-foot side yards and 16 feet, Mike, and when I talked further to our the builder group, and I'd like you to know that we're not developing these lots and selling them to builders other than ourselves or to individuals or builders. We are also the builder of the homes. But as I talked to our field people, they suggested that perhaps 7.5 would give us a little bit more latitude. We're more than willing to hold and go back to the 8 feet, not go back. I mean, we're willing to utilize 8 feet. I think when we talked, I had pointed out that generally speaking, the footprint of these houses are 54 feet, and then that's how we arrived at the 16 feet. And some of these lots, it will be conceivably more than that, because when you drop that footprint into the building envelope, there's going to be some greater side yards and so forth. But 8 feet, it was presumptuous on my part to suggest 7.5 when we had discussed 8 feet.
All right, and certainly that's a discussion that the board can have as to whether or not that is, whether they want to include that and approve that. I believe, Sean, If we approve the plan as presented tonight, we're approving the 7.5-foot side yard setback, correct?
Unless you were to create a subject to in that motion, yes.
Okay. And I want to compliment the developer, and I have looked at many of his other developments, and he did work with the township dramatically in changing. The parallel plan allows for 540 units on the apartment building side. Because of the type of plan that they would like to present to the township, and because of this board's insistence that we try to maintain as much of a rural atmosphere as we can down Hill Road and along that section of M59, they have downgraded their, and it's not the right word, but downsized their density to 394 apartment buildings, and then the home sites as well, giving us a 100-foot setback from the right-of-way of Hill Road and 74-foot setback from the right-of-way of M59. So as was presented on the screen, there's going to be a change, no question about it, to the residents. However, it's going to be a much softer, and you're not going to have a two-story apartment building looming over Hill Road. So the drive is going to be much more rural than what they originally presented. I did have something that I'd like the board to discuss as well. I believe the ordinance requires that they pave the roadway and take utilities from border to border along their property line. Along M59, they must extend utilities, and along Hill Road, they must extend the utilities up to the northern property line. And I believe they're doing that. However, the roadway, they're looking to stop the pavement 140 feet short of the north property line. And Mr. O'Neill can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the ordinance requires them to pave the road to the north property line. And in the statement from the developer, he is saying that they would be willing to do that if the road commission initiated a project north of there. So they're actually tying action from an agency to what they need to do, or what this board is recognizing them to do. I'm suggesting that maybe we do that just a little differently. Instead of having the road commission do something in order for them to comply with the ordinance, I would rather them come back to us and tell us that the road commission will not allow them to do that, and then allow this board to either work with the road commission or administration work with the road commission, or have this board then release them from that requirement instead of them stating they're not going to do it unless the road commission allows them to. I would much prefer us require them to do it and then come back to us if the road commission doesn't allow them to do that. Now, there's a little different, same potential end result, but it puts the burden on the developer instead of on the road commission. I don't want anything, that's like saying, I'm only going to tie into the sanitary sewer if the DEQ mandates it. Well, no, it's their responsibility to tie into the sanitary, and then if they have a problem doing it, then they come back to us in engineering. So I'm suggesting that we discuss that as a board. The last issue is that, and this is critical, and Mr. Galbraith can maybe discuss this a little bit. We have had many other DDAs, or not DDAs, PDs, yeah, planned developments. They have had to come forward with a community benefit. The owners here have come forward with a community benefit that they have said that they will write the township a check for $100,000, and that's what they consider their community benefit. The township isn't here to benefit them. They're here to benefit the township. And I don't believe that that is proper to necessarily write the township a check that the township can use elsewhere in the township. I believe the money should be spent in the area that they're making the biggest impact, and the community or the residents in that area are going to be impacted the most. So my suggestion is that any additional cost, let me back up just for a minute. If we don't require them to go to the north property line, there's an expense there that we're relieving them of. So if that 140 feet of pavement is going to cost, I'll just throw out a number, $50,000, we're giving them a credit of $50,000 over and above what the ordinance requires them to do. So I need to understand from the developer, number one, why the board should allow them to not include that in as part of their development, why we should give them that credit, and then why the community benefit shouldn't be to make that area better and improve the roadway north of that and around that wetland area there. Now, if we require that, they're going to need the township board's help. They're going to need the supervisor's office, the staff, and this board's help to work with the road commission and potentially Eagle to make that happen. I think that's worth it. And so the community benefit should be to improve that roadway beyond what the ordinance requires them to, instead of buying picnic tables in a park 2 miles away. And so I think we need to discuss that as a board. And I'd kind of like Mr. Galbraith's response to my concern there.
Well, Mr. Powell, let me start with the construction of Hill Road or improvement of Hill Road to the property line. We're not looking to not take that on. What we're saying is it's not practical to do that at this time, given the slopes, the soil conditions, the grade of the road, and so forth. We, in the PD agreement, we envisioned that we would have the obligation to do that. We would put the money up in escrow for that. It's always been contemplated for that. It's been contemplated for the same thing we're not extending the sanitary sewer quite to the north property line as part of this development either, for the topography and so forth as it stands today. So it's not that we're asking not to do it or not to fund it, it's just that it isn't practical to do it now. With respect to the Hill Road improved north of the property line, it's a very significant undertaking to do that. You've got to deal with Eagle, you've got to deal with other property owners, unknown soil conditions and the like. I don't see that, we don't see that as necessarily the proper benefit for if we're trying to provide a community benefit. We're not burdening that road. There's very little to no traffic coming from our project that is going north on Hill Road. Our traffic engineer can demonstrate that. It's been modeled. We had a difficult time envisioning what a proper community benefit would be for our project, for our contribution. So we made the decision that we would offer a cash contribution to the township, not necessarily uncommon for a community benefit. I'm not speaking necessarily just to White Lake Township, but then at the discretion of the board, where the board felt that money could be best used for the benefit of the broader community. And that's why we are where we are today.
Okay. One of the things that I've been doing, as you well know, is I've had a very warm and intimate relationship with the Road Commission here in the last couple of years. And my experience will tell me that, and my inquiries will tell me that that project is not going to be deemed practical at this time and is not on the county's radar.
If I could just comment to that
just
very quickly, because the engineers I've talked to disagree with you on that.
Yeah, well,
So,
the political end of it feels otherwise, and they hold the purse strings.
yes, okay.
Okay, so the offer to put monies aside for that improvement from the 104 or 140?
It's 140.
140 foot from the property line aside is a very fair and equitable offer to make to the township for future improvements, although we don't know when those improvements would happen. I also know that in the scope of these projects, and you know this to be true, Mike, these things can take a tremendous amount of time. The start to end on any project as an extension into the other property, I would say realistically could take up to 3 years, okay, to get through the process and as such. There is little impact to the north. The traffic that is going to be coming out of this project is all going to be going to the south. I traversed that road for many, many years because my brother lived up off of Grass Lake Road, so I'm all too familiar with it, and I do know that it does need attention, but that's not the only spot and/or segment within White Lake Township, nor on Hill Road that could use improvement. So there's just, I don't think there's personally, I don't think it's beneficial to the township to try to pursue that particular project. We, as a township, right now have other projects. If we are going to be asked to make a contribution to the county for that particular project to be done, we have a variety of other projects, in particular our corridor, main corridor, Elizabeth Lake Corridor project, of which that funding would really be, I think, more effective in the overall good for the public. As far as the contribution to the township as your community benefit, there are numerous places that we could spend that funding. I know you made the comment about a picnic table here or there, but there are a variety of other projects that could be done, whether it's an extension of some walking path on M59, which we're trying to connect the dots in many areas, whether it's an improvement to the old building that's down in Stanley Park that is not part of the phase one of the park, to bring that up to a picnic pavilion, which I think would have a great impact for everyone in the community in the park. So there are opportunities. So as far as that funding goes, I think that they should be able to do the contribution, and at some point in time, this board can make a decision as to where we feel the greatest impact is. I would not want to hold them up on us making necessarily a decision for where those funds would be utilized somewhere along the line. We could put that in an escrow and just put it in, okay, what are we going to do? I get calls constantly for pathway projects. Now, you know and I know that that kind of money doesn't buy you a whole lot, but recently we've had some inquiries along Elizabeth Lake Road over near the new Saddle, my brain went dead, the new project off Elizabeth Lake Road.
Trailside Meadow?
Thank you, Trailside Meadows, where we have some residents that are walking along that road, their trying to get their children to school there on Elizabeth Lake Road. That would be a very impactful project. I'm not saying I'm only using that as an example. Okay, so there are multiple projects throughout the community, I think, that would have a much greater impact than trying to force someone to do something that's more or less off-site and north of the area of which that road will not see a lot of traffic from persons from their development. You know, everybody is going to take the path of least resistance, just like water, and they're going to go south, okay? So with that, I'm going to ask for any other comments from any of the other board members at this time.
Yeah.
Mr. Ruggles.
Just to add to your comment, you said that they'd be headed south. It's been brought up in a couple of meetings in regards to this project, that maybe the money would be well spent improving Ford Road, which is horrible, you know, because they're definitely going to take Ford Road down and head down to Cooley. So since you were talking about other places to put the money, not that we're going to
That is a possibility.
decide on that today, but that was brought up, and that might be a worthwhile expenditure for that. Just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, well, there again, these are the multitude of ideas of which this board could convene at a later time to decide and make a decision as to the final disposition of those funds. Mr. Roman.
Just a couple questions for Mr. O'Neill. The first is in regard to our ordinance. I don't know how many new subdivisions we've done off of dirt roads like the Hill Road, but I guess I didn't realize, as Mr. Powell had stated, that there's a requirement that they pave Hill Road.
It's not that black and white. We can require it, but there is not a black and white requirement says that they absolutely have to. So to get a PD, the township can require them to do that, and they've cooperated with us. They haven't argued with us about it.
Okay.
You know, there have been projects that have gone in, and I'm trying to think.
I know there's a couple subs off
There-
Grass Lake where your brother lived. I mean,
Yeah,
Grass
there's-
Lake Road was never paved.
Never paved. That's it's
Cedar
not a
Meadows, and
requirement.
Mike just mentioned it, is the one that is most recently gone in where there has not been any road paved. The interior roads are paved, but they did not pave Cedar Island Road. That was not a PD, that was just a straight site plan with an R1A
Okay.
zoning.
And then kind of the second question I had for you, Sean, is you had, I actually drove the road today with Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Noble. But if I understood correctly, at the northern point where they're proposing the road stop, part of that reason is because if they continue north, they're going to actually have to continue through the end of the curve in the road, based on the road commission's requirement that you can't stop paving in the middle of a curve.
Yeah, I think that was some of the concern, and I think Mr. Labadie, who's a traffic engineer, might be the best equipped to answer this, certainly more equipped than I am, but I think that was a concern, is that if you're paving into a curve, you know, usually, and we were out there today and we saw the kind of the S-curve sign, kind of beware, because there's topography that will be flattened out a bit during the construction of this road too, but as you kind of are going a certain speed on pavement, and, you know, were to turn to gravel, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't want to pave halfway through a curve on a gravel road.
You're there.
Okay, all right, sorry. So I think it's sort of a safety issue, and I think that's why they're backing away. You know, there are a lot of issues, topography, soils, but also that curve.
Okay, well, with that said, I thank the developer for paving what they're willing to pave. It sounds to me like they don't have to pave Hill Road. But wow, what a benefit that would be for the residents in that area. As far as the money, I actually like the check coming to the township so we can have somewhat of a choice. And I think, Scott, you brought up a good idea too with the Ford Road. That's a disaster.
So there are lots of options here under those conditions, so I would hope the board members would all be in consideration of following Mr. Roman's thought process, and that is that we could accept the funds and decide at a later date their disposition throughout the community for a community-wide benefit. I'm very grateful that you're paving that road to the extent that you are. Again, you are not under any obligation necessarily to do it, but it is a benefit to your project and a benefit to the residents in that particular area. So it will make your project, and again, everybody's life a little bit nicer along the way.
I think it will, yes.
Comes with a speed limit, so that's.
Comes
Yeah, 55.
55. I'd like it to be 45 or 35, but the road commission is at 55.
I'd like
Well,
25.
when the road goes to a hard surface, there is a very, very good chance that we can petition the road commission for a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit.
We would certainly support that.
And I would, as the supervisor, and I'm certainly certain that our chief of police would stand behind that to have a reduction down to 35 miles an hour. And we would take every avenue necessary from the township's perspective to have a reduction for the safety in that particular area. The overall scheme of the project and the reduction of the units as you've done on the residential end, I think was a good move on your part. I do share Mr. Powell's concern about a little bit more room in between the units because, God forbid, we have a problem. We've got to be able to remedy that situation. So that is a concern. From 87 to 68 is a great move. I really appreciate the fact that you put all the accesses from inside the development, and as your comment first stated, I think it'll make it a better development by a long shot than people trying to come in off of Hill Road. And from basically 406 down to 394, when you could be up to 500 plus, okay, I think is also a great, show on your part of concern for our community, because we always walk this line between development and our rural integrity. So we have to walk this. But M59, that location is probably one of the, if you're going to put something like that in our community, that's probably one of the better places to put it because of the fact that that traffic can be absorbed to 59. You might not ask people that at 7:30 in the morning going eastbound, but nonetheless, it's probably the best possible location. Any other comments from the board members? Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'd like to thank you for your time that you spent with our staff and trustee.
Microphone. I can barely
Am I
hear you.
not on?
I can barely hear you. Get a little
I don't know
closer.
which one that works.
A little
Apologize.
closer.
How about that?
Better.
Okay, I don't know which one's mine. Thank you. I'll start over. I want to thank you for your time that you spent with our staff and extra time with Trustee Powell. I appreciate the effort that you're putting in, but I want to let my colleagues know tonight that this is as though we're moving in the right direction. We're still not in the right direction for me. I don't believe that you've quite met the ordinances that I feel comfortable with, and the safety concern of the 7.5 sides setbacks is a great concern for me. If our fire department has a safety concern, I certainly have a concern. Public safety is very important to me. So you're moving in the right direction, but I'm going to let my colleagues know that I'm still a no this evening. But thank you. And I look forward to continuing efforts to get there where we need to get.
Thank you.
Good.
I might make one other statement about the side yards, and Mike and I talked about it, and I think we both kind of passed over it when we were focused on the 7.5 versus the 8. Mike, I think you will recall that we would go to the 8 with the mutual understanding and requirement in the PD agreement that we couldn't put any appurtenances in the side yards.
Correct.
That whether they're generators, whether they're air conditioner units and so forth, so that you've got a true 16-foot separation and not somebody encroaching 2 feet and 2 feet, and all of a sudden that becomes 12 feet or 11 feet and would be far too tight. And we've discussed that amongst our builder group, and I neglected to mention that earlier.
Is that in the planning notes?
We have that. We've got it.
Okay, all right. Well, that is a little tidbit of information that carries a tremendous amount of weight, because I can't begin to tell you how many times I've been out to a project where there may have been the distance between the structures, but everybody decides to put something
Stuff.
in the way.
Yeah.
And so that makes a considerable
And to
difference.
piggyback on that, we also agreed that there'd be no cantilevering of the buildings.
That's correct
over the
also. No
foundations.
cantilevers of bay windows or fireplaces.
Not in the
and so
side
forth.
yard.
Not in the side yard.
Right.
No, it could be in the rear yard, could
Correct.
be in the front yard.
Okay, well, that in itself makes a huge difference.
Right.
So tend to be a little more receptive to their
Right.
16-foot, with that small caveat. Then I think that would, as long as it's of record and part of the in-house administrative review of this, I would have no problem necessarily with that, because again, nothing like running into an air conditioner when you're trying to drag a fire hose. Those types of things.
It'll be something that we put in the condo docs as well for the east side.
Correct.
So, I mean, people usually don't pull their development agreement out. They
Well,
may
no,
refer to
but
the.
it's going to be known, because this is
Right.
going to be a concern. The building department will be able to abide by those particular notes, so footnotes will help, and also with the layout of the homes. And since you are going to be the developer of record and the builder of record of
We are,
those
yes.
homes, that will streamline that process much more versus dealing with 6 different builders and trying to make sure, guys like Chuck, and trying to deal with them. I say that tongue in cheek, great builder. That we have, quality people working in our township that we like to work with and see the kind of products that when our residents come, they have a good product and we know what we're dealing with. So I'm good with that. I don't see that being a problem now that that piece of information has been revealed.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Andrea?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for making our adjustments. I will be a yes, but at the same time, I would love if you would consider those the 16-foot between both.
Well, they are, that is.
Yeah, okay,
that
and
is-
that's what I
that is
thought, I wanted to
we're
confirm.
talking about right
Okay,
now.
but yeah,
Yes.
but thank you.
Yeah.
I would,
Mr. Noble.
I had a question for Director O'Neill. So the ordinance is how many units per acre?
The density, well, the master plan calls for 6 to 8, or the RM1 is 6 to 8 units an acre, and they're at 6.1.
So they're under the ordinance.
They're at the very low end.
Fair to say, right?
On the west side for
Okay.
RM1, and I want to say that, what was they're at 2.2 units an acre, down from 2.6.
So they've reduced it quite a bit.
Yes.
I'd like to thank you guys for doing that. When we first saw the plan, it was quite a bit to take in, and appreciate some Trustee Powell and the township offices working with you guys to come up with this parallel plan, which was a lot of work. And a lot of times developers come in and they want to just cram. You guys did the reverse, and I commend you for it.
Well, we've got a ways to go yet. If we get preliminary approval, we've got to go through final approval, and we'll be fussing with this plan a little bit more and making it better all along.
I also like what Treasurer Roman said as far as the money coming to the township, and gives us a little time to be able to discuss that.
Any other comments from the board?
You said.
I have two things that I'd like, again, discussion our board, maybe with Mr. Galbraith's input a little bit. We have all agreed that we are speculating on a great deal when we're talking about the interpretation or what the road commission will do. They have a tremendous amount of engineering to be done on even the paving and the realignment of Hill Road itself in the area that they've offered to do. So to arbitrarily tell them that we approve them to stop short of what would be best for the community, just because someone says the road commission, I don't think likes it. And so the engineers, quite frankly, that I've talked to, are more than willing to look at the potential of modifying that intersection. As you know, Mr. Kowal, when Grass Lake Road was modified, the road commission gave in, modified all those S-curves on Grass Lake Road, and before that happened, people were saying the road commission will never approve it. But they did. And I'm not ever asking the road commission to throw any funds at it at all. We're talking about this township and a developer putting funds in, not the road commission and putting it in their budget. So I'm concerned that we are speaking for the road commission before any engineering has been done at all. And I think that's inappropriate. I think we ought to have the road commission tell us in writing that they are unwilling to allow something to happen that is for the betterment of the community and the township. That's number one. And number two is this project is estimated at $140 million. That's what they're proposing to, that's the value of this project. Who decided on $100,000 as the community benefit share of this development to the township? The developer did, that's correct. And so I'm asking this board to maybe discuss that and not just arbitrarily accept that as a valid offer for a community development or a community impact statement or a community impact benefit to this township. So just those two things, whatever the board discusses, fine, but we shouldn't just gloss over and say, oh yeah, that's a nice size check, because if we had to write it, it'd be a huge check. But out of $140 million, that's only 0.2% of the project. And so I'm asking the board to discuss that.
Just a quick comment to Mike and the rest of the board. There are other benefits to the township, okay, that don't come in the form of a $100,000 contribution. We are talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that will be coming into the township for utility hookups. I don't know what the number is. Aaron, I don't know if you have that number, but that's money that will help us maintain our sewer and water systems.
But that's a benefit to them, not to us.
Well, it is
No,
a
it's a
benefit
benefit to us,
for them to have users on the system.
But that's a requirement You're asking them.
Still a benefit.
You're asking to recognize a requirement of them as a benefit to us. And that's not what the community, that's not what the benefit's for in a PD
Not
agreement.
the definition of it. in the
Well,
PD.
we can agree to disagree on that view.
Understand.
And I respect that.
Yep.
However, when you have a development of this magnitude coming in, there is always an economic impact on the area. There's an impact on the stores. There's an impact on the schools. There's an impact on the community as a whole.
Impact on traffic.
That will go without saying, and we can talk about Union Lake Corridor all day long, okay? So let's not go there.
Yeah.
So,
Rick, real quick,
Yes.
just so I can finish. I don't know if anyone either has done a study on the taxable value of these developments and how much money that's going to bring in to White Lake Township for property taxes. Is anyone?
I think that was in the original community impact statement that was probably part of the original packet. I don't have that in front of me right now, but do you remember it off the top of your head?
I don't, Sean, but it was submitted with a package from a economic impact statement from utilities and from taxes. Part of the package.
It's got to be a significant number, is all I'm saying. As far as the road, I think you guys are saying that you are keeping some money put aside somehow, some way to help pay for that road to the northern
To our northern property line.
property.
We're
area in
obligated
which they're
to
responsible.
improve it to the northern property line. We recognize that. We would build it into the PD agreement. And that's the way I tried to characterize it in the letter that I sent with the latest submission. But I did take the position that it would have to be in the initiative of the township and the road commission and ourselves together to see the feasibility of doing that.
but you would be willing to put the funds in escrow with the township?
For that linkage
that
of the
segment
100,
of the
that
road.
segment, yes.
Okay.
And I would also say that beyond just putting the funds in escrow, I would say that, and I don't want to speak for you, but we've talked quite a bit about this. I think there's an understanding that there may be some cooperation necessary with some right-of-way that may need to be gained off of your property, kind of into that corner in order to maybe flatten the curve out. And
That's possible.
And our hope would be that in the development agreement, there could be some reference to the fact that the applicant would, as is generally the case for big projects like this, where a dedication of some sort is necessary in order to achieve the goals of the road commission. I think that's something we'll have to work through. And we're not talking about 5 acres of land. We're talking about, a sliver of land along the west side of the road in order to possibly flatten that out. So is that something that you'd be agreeable to taking a look at as well?
Yes, and I think that was stated in our letter as well.
Yeah.
In a generic sense, at least. And, there's going to be a lot of effort that goes into this plan yet as we go through final site plan and engineering. It may work out that the road commission, that we do the road to within 80 feet of the property line, 60 feet of the property line. The 140 was somewhat arbitrary based upon what we see the current circumstances to be out there in terms of the topography and so forth.
And where the road tracks within.
And where the road
right-of-way.
tracks.
Right.
And, this road is going to get regraded, and different grades set all the way down from where it comes onto our property to where it hits M59. And I couldn't tell you as I stand here today what those grades are going to look like. I'm not even sure that my engineer could tell you. One of the things that we really want to do here is develop both sides of the road at the same time because of the earth moving and the land balance and so forth that goes along with it. So it's going to be much different than it is today.
Very good. Mr. Ruggles?
Yeah, Mr. Powell, I don't disagree with your two comments. The only thing I would say, and I also in previous meetings of the Planning Commission, I've disagreed. I feel like there's going to be more traffic on Hill Road than what they think, just because I drive those roads every day, so I just think that they're going to be heading north. And I would love to have it paved up to Grass Lake Road like you're talking about, but even if the road commission were to be on board, the financial burden of that is so huge. Who's going to cover it?
I was just talking about getting through the S-curve, maybe
Just through
100
the
foot
curve.
north of their property, not all the way up to Grass Lake Road.
Yeah, but how much do you think that would cost? a lot of money.
I believe that it's absolutely doable, and I can't put the cost on it because they haven't even engineered the rest of Hill Road yet, let alone looked at that section. So,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. There's too many unknowns.
Right.
That I think that the time between now and getting the answers could be considerable, and I don't feel it's in all fairness for us to hold up their project. I believe that if they're willing to put an escrow towards that particular end of the property line, and if the township decides that it wants to take the $100,000, if this board agrees to put that $100,000 towards payment through that curve, then so be it, okay? But until we get there, we can speculate. We have no idea what the subsoils are there. That could be organics 70 feet down, okay?
same thing on the roads inside their development.
Yeah.
The same thing could be said. So you can't speculate on something and say, okay, because we speculate on it, we're not going to approve it. I mean, we're not going to require it. So that's what I was just referring to. You can't not do something because it may be hard. This whole project is hard.
Now, it's not a matter of hard, it's a matter of costs, okay? And the township is going to be spending some money here in the next couple of years on a project that's going to be for the greater good of the community. And if someone was to say, go here or go there, I would rather go over here. And that's just my opinion, but I think that's a greater return for the township. And we do have limited funds, and we have to be careful what we have. I'm not discounting anything you're saying.
Okay.
Okay,
I understand.
let's understand that.
Because the people on Hill Road will disagree with you as well.
I'm sure they have their own opinion.
Yes.
Okay? But I also know that once they get through that S-curve and they hit that asphalt, they're going to be happy ducks. Okay? Because that's been pretty much the rocky road going south there at times. And, you know, we've all been down it, so we know what it's like. Well, I would like to see us move forward with this, potentially with a few potential caveats, okay? But I would like them to get through the process so that they have the ability to move forward. I believe they answered the 16-foot question. That was a concern of mine, and knowing that the apertures, parent structures and such won't be in that way, I feel comfortable enough that we'll be able to get through there with safety equipment and be able to, you know, remedy any situation that comes along. And as far as the contribution for the community benefit, the developer has made a very generous offer to do so, and I feel that we as a board don't necessarily, I frankly don't think we have necessarily the right to put a price tag on what it is to come here and do business in the township. I think if they're willing to make whatever offer it is, and we are in agreement of it, and they see the benefit of it, and we accept that, that I think it will be ultimately for the benefit of the community overall, one way or the other, whatever this board decides ultimately. And I do take the road extension as a possibility with those funds. So
Is that something that has to be decided at this meeting?
it does not, no. We are merely trying to move forward with this particular concept plan, correct? Mr. O'Neill?
Yeah, that's correct. And I mean, the way that the 140 feet is handled, the way that the contribution's handled, I mean, those are all things that I think we can work through in the next step at the Planning Commission. And ultimately, while this is the last time you will take action on a site plan tonight, this is not the last time you'll see this, because the development agreement ultimately comes back here for the final stamp of approval. So any wording, any changes, actually, development agreement changes that you make could effectively make site plan changes. So we don't generally see that, but, you know, and Scott is your representative on the Planning Commission and can certainly, along with me, carry some of these things back, as well as Mike and Aaron, who are involved at the staff level. So there's quite a bit of work to be done, and I think your comments and concerns have been received loud and clear.
And they can be addressed at further steps through this process.
I would just say, to echo your sentiment about dollar amounts being offered to the township, dependent upon project, to move away from that would be just to, you know, have them do a project rather than a dollar amount, like Mike's saying, you know, okay, we're gonna do this instead of hand over.
Well, that is a possibility of something the board can discuss the different parameters. Right now, trying to get their business moving along, because with them, you know, time is money.
Sure. No, I
And they
understand
need
that,
to
but-
keep it rolling. But I understand your
It's
position.
a little bit, I don't like it either, talking about dollars and this project offered this and that one offered that. And I would rather see something solid, something done than
Something
dollars.
tangible. Right, okay, I understand, and I agree. So that being said, Mr. O'Neill, you looking for a motion to approve this plan?
Yes, there are two actions, actually really three, because there are two separate parcels that need to be rezoned. But the first item on your agenda is a site plan. The only thing I would request is that you do cite the review comments that are in your packet, which include many engineering and other comments that do need to be addressed, and I think the applicants agreed to address them all, but I just want to reference them. And then also, we may want to address the 7.5-foot side yard change going to 8 feet on the east side, because that's been discussed tonight. And depending on who's crafting the motion and whether or not they have a desire to reference the 140-foot question that we're talking about for the Hill Road paving north. Just
But
to
as
do
you had mentioned, that can be addressed in the development agreement, correct?
Absolutely. I didn't know if you wanted to
Council
give
is
marching
shaking her
orders.
head.
Well, I didn't know if you want to give marching orders to the staff and planning commission for final site plan through a motion. It's up to you. But those are the two kind of lingering things that I think may need to be added to the standard, review comments and,
I would make a motion to approve the site plan as submitted to this board, subject to the administration crafting, as I will put it, okay, that you may need to do, and that it would be related to the side yard setback as discussed of no less than 16 feet between structures, and that the 140 feet plus or minus at the north end of the road be discovered as to its possibility of being extended and worked into a county project forthwith.
you're my boss, but can I just ask you to add all the review comments as well? And
All the review comments as of record.
could I also respectfully request that we say 8-foot side yard setback rather than 16
I
feet
beg your
between
pardon.
structures?
I will correct
Only because
myself.
it means getting two different
8-foot
things.
side yard setback. Yes.
And that was with complete respect.
I will make that in the form of a motion, Mr. Powell. I've just made a motion.
I understand that, and I'm not going to second it.
Okay, looking for a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion, I have a
I
second.
just have one question on your motion. Can you
Yes.
explain the part of your motion about the 140 feet?
That is, we are going to take a look at what we can do with the county per Mr. Powell's thought process, whether the practicality and the practicability of doing a project north of that exists with the county road commission.
Okay, but that's not going to hold up this
No,
project.
let's move forward. It's just saying we're going to take that action.
That's an arbitrary line that they speculated on, that 140 feet, but it may be shorter than that.
It could be.
Yeah.
But there's a number of reasons when they say.
Okay, and we're not requiring them to do anything. That's on us.
We're going to, that's what I said in my
I'm
motion.
good with it.
That we will take that, Mr. Powell and I will venture into that. Okay. I put that in the form of a motion. It's seconded.
Under discussion?
Discussion?
Thank you. Just a comment that I believe the developers have come a long way. They are very first-class developers. They've worked with the township extremely well. They were conciliatory to us when we met in some good meetings at the township. And I'm going to support this. No project's going to be 100% perfect. And if we waited until 100% perfect, we'd never have a project done in the township. So I have expressed my concerns. The board has aired it out. And I believe it would be not prudent for me to vote no on a project where they have really come a long way in providing for a first-class development with a great deal of improvements in that area. So thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
And on that discussion note, I would like to thank you for your professional input and some of the things that you brought to the board's attention in relationship to the sensitivity of that area, of which most of us are familiar with, but it's always nice to have it looked at from a different perspective.
Yes.
Motion, support,
I still have discussion.
discussion.
Ditto to Mr. Powell. I do appreciate and thank you for taking in our comments and moving along here. I'm still going to be a no tonight as presented, but I look forward to working together and your continued efforts. So thank you.
Any further comment? Motion, discussion, roll call vote?
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
No.
trustee Powell,
Yes.
treasurer Roman,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
supervisor Kowal.
Yes.
And clerk Noble, yes.
Very good. You
Thank you, Mr.
got your
Supervisor.
marching orders.
Thank you. Well, I think we have two more matters here that,
Yeah, on that one anyways.
These matters are a little more straightforward if you'd like me to dive in.
Please do.
Tonight, we are considering, your agenda simply references second reading of the Avalon rezoning, which is absolutely correct, but I would just like to state for the record, this may be information you could use for a potential motion, but the applicant seeks to rezone two parcels, parcel number 12-20-101-003 from AG Agricultural to PB Plan Business to PD Plan Development, and parcel number 12-20-126-006 from R1A Single Family Residential to PD Plan Development.
Mr. Powell?
I'm going to cheat a little bit and say so moved.
So moved. I will support that so moved because of the technical description of the property.
Absolutely.
Roll call vote?
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
treasurer Roman,
Yes.
trustee Powell,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes, so that you are able to work with the township, of course.
thank you.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
and clerk Noble, yes.
Very
Okay,
good.
thank you very much, and we look forward to working with the board, the planning commission, and staff, and your consultants.
Thank
Good
you
evening.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks.
Thank you.
Lady. Next item, second reading, the Haley Road rezoning.
This one should be pretty quick. This property is before you for second reading. Mr. Burt is the applicant. We refer to it as a Haley Road rezoning request, comprised of approximately 68 acres, which is currently zoned AG, agricultural. Mr. Burt requests a rezoning to SF, suburban farms. This property is described as 2110 Haley Road. There's currently a home and a couple of outbuildings on this property now.
We had discussion on the board at this at length before, but there really wasn't a great length to do because this is a fairly straightforward. The rezoning request is well within the guidelines of the master plan and does not create any sort of spot zoning. And seeing as that the property owner is a builder of high standard and quality, and I believe he has the greatest interest and integrity of White Lake Township, not alone his property as well. I would like to make a motion to adopt this into second, and make this adoption effective.
Support.
I have motion, I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Moving on. Thank you, sir. You know, I was only ribbing you about being a shady builder, okay? You know. We should all have them like you. Thank you, okay? New business, consideration of preliminary site plan of Black Rock. I got a hankering for a steak. What's the holdup here?
I am going to look out in the crowd and ask, is there someone here representing Black Rock tonight? I can't see around the corner. See the Cosmos group.
I don't see anyone.
Okay, so there is no applicant, so I don't know if you are wanting me to give your report and take action tonight, or,
Why don't you give us a report, and we'll make a decision.
Were they supposed to be here, Sean?
well, I would be here if I was asking you to approve my project. That's just me, though. So before you have Black Rock Restaurant. They are at the corner, the east side of White Banks Boulevard, south of M59, on a site that's approximately 2.8 acres in size. This project was before the Planning Commission on October 6th, at which time they held a public hearing to consider their special land use for outdoor seating, which was unanimously approved, and then their preliminary site plan, which was approved by a 7-2 vote. There are certainly a whole host of review comments. Some of the comments that you probably saw in your packet pertain to maybe some concerns that there are regarding their signage and the exterior of their building, which I think they have some control over and can, probably work through to minimize before going to the ZBA. But that's really up to them. Variances will be needed for that, that component of their proposal, as well as some driveway separation requirements of the ordinance. So that aside, we received at that meeting quite a bit of public comment. Most of it was related to concerns regarding traffic, regarding some noise, regarding lighting. They are required to and will meet all the lighting standards, will meet all the screening standards. That's certainly not something that at the staff level we would waver on. Again, this is general business zone property on M59, and not only is a restaurant use a permitted use, but the Planning Commission again did fine for their special land use request for outdoor seating and approved it. So other than that, I don't have any further comment. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Mike and Aaron are probably here. If you have any questions regarding engineering or utilities, happy to answer them. But again, I unfortunately do not see the applicant here tonight.
For unknown reasons. Any questions or comments from the board at this time? Mr. Ruggles, this has come before you in the Planning Commission?
Yeah. And
Comment?
it's kind of strange, actually, tonight, that there's nobody here for or against it. These meetings have been pretty contentious.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Comments, questions, board members? Mr. Powell?
One of the concerns, Mr. O'Neill, was the lighting. And certainly you can't do anything regarding the noise if there's honking or engines or 55 Harleys that drive in at the same time. However, our ordinance, this is a fairly unique location, and our ordinance may not catch all the nuances of the impact of this parking lot wrapping around 3 homes. And I'm wondering, and I didn't see, and forgive me if I didn't catch it, is there a illumination plan? Is there a photometric plan submitted with this project?
I don't.
Well, it does say it's specifically that the site plan shall include a photometric
Yeah.
and catalog detail for all proposed fixtures. Outdoor lights must meet performance standards of section 5.18.
Yeah, and I'm questioning the 5.18 because that doesn't necessarily, okay, thank you, I didn't see that.
You can read it. You're doing better
If you
than me
can
right
read it.
now. But
Yeah.
I wanted to mention, Mike, before you jump, Mr. Powell, before
Probably
you
know where I'm
jump.
going.
Yeah, further, so they did reduce to, I think they're 6-foot tall bollards, Mike, around the south side of the site. There is still pole lighting further into the center and the north side of the site, but along the south side up against the wall.
Along the south and the wall.
They went to,
I actually think they're gonna need to revise that lighting plan, because they're showing 0-foot candles around those lights, which I
Yes.
think is probably inaccurate.
yeah. That's something that we generally deal with more at final, but it's on their radar, sort of like final landscaping. We ask them to provide it, but we don't really nail everything down until final. But they did reduce the poles down to a bollard, and there's a 6-foot wall that separates that parking lot from those homes on both the north side of the homes and down, so if you follow the cursor, along the south side of the property, north side of the homes, and then the west side of this panhandle, east side of the homes, there'll be a 6-foot masonry wall with some landscaping as well. So those bollards should not be able to be seen over the wall.
And you went exactly where I wanted you to. I knew the wall was there. I didn't see this plan, so I didn't catch the 6-foot bollard and whether or not they build those lights into the wall, which they can do, and shield them down. But at least it proposes to reduce the glare coming into the back windows of these homes. And if they shield them per the ordinance, they should not see any of these lights. It is going to impact the glow at night. Certainly, they're not going to be able to have the clear view of the stars like they do now. But that we can't control, but we can at least shield them downward. So thank you, Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, there were some concerns from residents about, I think I measured it to be about 400 feet from the resident who was concerned to the nearest light pole.
Yeah.
They'll be cut off, so in the distance, you'll see it. I mean, you can see car headlights literally a mile down the road, so you will see lights in the distance, like we all do from our homes, whether it's a neighbor's porch light or, but it will not be shining, you won't be able to read the newspaper, in a window at night. They'll be shielded, so they're directed downward. They're either recessed lighting or have cutoff shields on them, so they're lighting up what they're intended to light, and there are 0-foot candles at the property line.
Yeah, I'm going to make a comment on that, Mr. Powell. When I was in the planning, when this plan was sitting in the office and I was perusing through it as I do through several of these, that was a very prominent comment that Justin pulled out and said, look, if these walls are going to be this tall, these lights have got to be shorter in this area. So they are very much aware of that, and will minimize the impact to those folks in that area.
I agree.
So
And it looks good.
I think it's a good plan, as best we can have for that particular use. It is difficult for persons that have been living in an area for some period of time, but when you are upper commercial district, you are always up for change. And if I'm not mistaken, the previous person had a certain smell that you wouldn't want, and now you're going to have the smell of a sizzling steak. So it's either that or that, and I'll take the steak, okay? Mr. Roman.
Hey, Sean, are there any significant negative issues in this plan that would cause you to reject it?
No, I mean, the staff is comfortable was comfortable recommending approval with conditions to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission pretty overwhelmingly is recommending that you take that same action. Again, this project appears to be headed to the ZBA for no other reason than driveway spacing per the ordinance, because the site is only so wide, and they cannot meet the driveway spacing requirements. I think that it's a benefit to have a driveway on both White Banks and on M59. The M59 driveway is the one that's causing issues, not the White Banks driveway. But, and I don't go to the ZBA meetings, but I hope at the ZBA, and I know one of you does go to the ZBA, there can be a balance. I mean, granting a variance is going to provide a second driveway, but with the traffic this use generates on, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, I don't think we want to introduce all of the inbound and outbound traffic onto a residential street. So by saying no to that variance, they're burdening White Banks Boulevard significantly. So I think when the strict interpretation of the ordinance could become more impactful in a negative way to the residents, behind this restaurant. So, things like signage, that's not such a big deal. It's a pretty attractive building, to answer your question. It's a popular restaurant. We're always hearing about, a desire of residents to have more restaurants in town. So, the neighbors behind are the ones who are most concerned, and I understand. That's to be expected. But again, and this is not meant to be disrespectful, but they are abutting commercial property on M59 and have enjoyed a vacant property behind their homes for a good number of years. And, at some point in time, it was going to be developed. And I'm not saying they don't have to meet standards. Of course, they do have to meet all the standards with the new development, but it will be different.
All right, well, with that.
I had one more point, please.
One moment.
Okay, go that way.
Mr. Ruggles?
To add on to what Sean said, and Mr. Powell, you can take this back to the ZBA, but in regards to the entrance on White Banks, the Planning Commission felt that it was definitely appropriate. They envisioned people making an accidental turn in onto White Banks, thinking they're going to get into Black Rock, but if that entrance is not there, they won't get into the restaurant. They'll just continue driving, and eventually they'll end up in the subdivision. With the entrance there, it will actually, they felt, reduce traffic into the subdivision in the back, so.
Yeah, and there was actually a neighbor who made an excellent suggestion, saying there needs to be a no outlet sign posted, because there was not one there now. I didn't know there wasn't one. They live there, so they would know that, and that's something I'm sure the road commission would cooperate on, so that way when people do leave, they don't try to cut through. That could be simple and could save several vehicle trips a day through that are unnecessary. So it was a good comment.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion about the entrance on White Banks, but we felt that it was definitely necessary.
Okay. Mr. Powell?
There was discussion with the owner that potentially those parking spaces at the southeast corner of the site, that finger that runs to the south, that would be posted employee parking only. And I'm wondering if that has been followed through on.
They did comply. They're okay with that.
Good.
Makes the best sense. We talked about that, you and I talked about that at the very first meeting because of that little fingerling.
One thing that came up, and I'm sorry that they're not here to be able to present this themselves because it was a new development at the Planning Commission, and Mr. Ruggles will remember this, that the driveway on M59 that you can see more, this is probably the clearest picture of the site with the parking and the driveways that we have, is actually going to move, I think they said, 40 or 50 feet further to the west because of an MDOT requirement. And it's actually going to, if you see their handicap parking spaces are right here where the cursor's going back and forth. We had wanted them up against the sidewalk, and they brought a board that night to display because it was so new, they hadn't even sent it to us yet. Because the driveway is moving to the west, it's going to really cause a reconfiguration of this parking lot. They're not going to lose any spaces, but if you can imagine this bank of parking rotating 90 degrees and then facing the restaurant, it's actually going to be, the only thing that's unfortunate, it's going to go closer to White Banks, which is creates more of a deficiency, but it's going to make the site function better, and it's going to make the barrier-free spaces, it's going to put them in a lot better spot. They're pretty far from the door in this layout, and we never really liked this, but it was just kind of the best they could do. So it's going to put them in a more favorable location, which is kind of where we were hoping they'd be in the first place. So the site, the building's not going to change in its location, but the driveway may well change and move further west. That's one of the reasons they didn't push ahead and go to the ZBA yet, because they don't exactly know what they're going to ask the ZBA for. But we don't object to it. We think it's going to be a better end design, but it's something different than you're seeing tonight, and I was hopeful that they'd be here to speak about it tonight, so.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's important information to have,
It
that
is.
the handicap is going to be more functioning, so
Yeah, I
thank
think the
you.
project overall will be better and the headlights won't be
I'm
facing.
looking forward to it.
That, I know you will.
Yeah.
They got great desserts too.
Yeah, I know.
So, though the headlights will go more east and west than north and south, which actually is beneficial from a glare standpoint.
I just have one quick question.
Yes.
How can we encourage them to improve White Banks Boulevard? So because it will be increased traffic.
So you improve with like a repaving?
Yes, or even,
That would be more of a road commission question. I don't know. It's already paved, so I don't know
it's
that.
in bad shape, and it will definitely have increased traffic.
So, yeah, and I don't, you can tell, I don't know how,
Exits into it.
the date on this says 2022, so it does look like it's seen better days.
There are a lot of cracks in that drive, and there are some deficiencies, but not to the degree that this photograph, I think, reveals.
Yeah, the original driveway, if you can see my cursor, tied into, it went through this cut through. And at the staff level, we said, there's no way. You're getting way too close to the homes with traffic and headlight swing. And so we pushed them, I'd say forced, but we said we weren't going to recommend approval unless they moved their driveway to where it's at now, and they did. And so now it lines up with Speedway, and it keeps all that traffic. And it may only be 60 feet, but it's 60 feet further away from all those homes all night, every night. And so,
Including the light spin at night.
the swing of a headlight,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
And so, and you can kind of see, the fence that's out there now is roughly where the wall would be.
Yeah, the bulk of the headlight swing will catch that wall.
And they've landscaped down to the corner. We asked them to add trees where the wall ends, so it should do a pretty good job.
Good.
So to answer the question on road improvements on White Banks,
Just thoughts.
sure, I mean, we can ask them to talk to the road commission about doing some work.
At the very least, we might say that if a special assessment district is presented to the road commission, these two commercial developments would pay their fair share of any improvements.
I think they would by law, wouldn't they? Because they're
Oh, yeah,
benefiting
they'd be
parties.
part of the benefit.
Sure.
Yeah.
The only issue with that is they're large properties, so then it lopsides the land area calculation, so it would be beneficial to have some type of an agreement in place, I think.
Well, Speedway has been there for a number of years, and they're been fairly good community stewards, but it's yet to be seen what would happen if that road goes under a paving assessment district, and all we can do is apply the county's rules and regulations. So you need a motion to approve this plan as submitted, subject to notes. and-
BlackRock would like that, I'm sure.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure they
absentia.
would. Yeah.
So just to clarify before we move forward, Sean, you've already requested them to make their driveway line up with Speedway, right? That's already,
That's a done deal.
That's a done deal,
You
okay.
can't see it so well here, but let me scroll up.
nope, I got it. That's
Okay.
perfect because that makes perfect sense. Residents there are already used to people traveling that path, and so that's perfect.
You can see it really here, in the first cut through in the island, you can see Speedway's driveway right across.
Okay.
Mr. Powell?
Well, I ask, would we like to see BlackRock here at our next meeting, or do you want to approve it and assume that they want us to approve it?
Well, it's my understanding they want us to move forward. I am a little surprised they are not here, to be honest with you, but I believe that things and conditions have been met by Planning Commission and as such, and frankly, I see no reason to hold it up.
Let me throw out something, since they're
We can
not here.
table it because they're not here.
I wouldn't mind at all seeing the reconfiguration of the parking and how that's going to play into the geometrics in this parcel. But at the very least, could they go to ZBA without, no, in theory, they could be on the board next month and then the ZBA right after the board meeting.
They could. They will not make the meeting until the December, because the way Thanksgiving, Christmas fall, you have odd dates in November, December, so they'd be looking at the December ZBA.
Well, they are under no requirement to be here. I'm not
Right.
discounting or, condoning the fact that they're not here, but there's no obligation for them to be here.
So I'm going to state that I believe the redesign of the parking lot is a major part of the site plan.
Well, isn't that's going to go before Sean, regardless, and the planning
So
commission?
it will it would be nailed down, the configuration would be nailed down at final site plan.
At the planning commission?
At the planning commission.
Oh, okay, that's right.
But the
Still gonna go
ZBA is
through that
still
process.
going to have to see it, because
Yes.
they're going to have to, there's no way they can meet the driveway spacing requirement.
Right.
So they're going to have to come in with their revised plan to go to the ZBA. So the ZBA and the planning commission are both going to see this.
I'm good with that then.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
there's definitely checks and balances
so
there.
Mr. Supervisor, I move approval of the preliminary site plan of Black Rock as presented, subject to the review comments from the planners and engineers, as well as the redesign of the site to accommodate the road commission requirements.
I will second
And
that.
staff comments.
I thought I
And
said
staff,
that.
you did say, I thought I heard staff comments.
Planning and engineering,
Staff and consultants.
staff and
I
consultants.
usually just
okay.
throw a big
Because there's
net over it.
fire and
Everybody that
Justin.
wants to have input on it, including the attorney.
There you go. Now, that was a catch-all. I like that.
And Mr.
I'll
Powell,
support that.
I just to clarify, for the record, you had mentioned the road commission for the driveway, but it would actually be MDOT.
I'm sorry,
Because it's
MDOT.
the
Yeah, yeah,
M59
yeah.
driveway that will move, not White Bank. So I just
MDOT, not
wanted
the
to-
road commission,
Okay.
thank you.
I will adjust my second and as such. Seeing as we have motion, we have second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Not opposed. Request to approve police officer Barty armor purchase. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. We are at the 5-year mark for vests. They are warranted through the 5 years, and they don't warranty anymore through either sweat and heat and cold. The many seasons that we have, the officers, that they wear them, they won't be warranted anymore, so we need to get new ones. So we need to get new ones every 5 years. There's 15 officers that need new vests. And this year, we were adding an exterior carrier to the purchase because a lot of the officers are having, including myself, have back problems because all the stuff they wear on their belt. And we're trying to move some of the stuff from their belt up to the front part of the exterior vest to give them some relief from back pain. Because I know Jeff or Lieutenant Way has back problems. There are several officers that are coming up with back problems because of the weight on their belt. And I want to relieve them of that issue by putting some of the weight on their exterior vest. So I'm requesting that we ordered 15 new vests and then 2 extra vests for either, we have a lot of programs with citizen ride-alongs. We have 2 cadets that do ride-alongs. We have interns that do ride-alongs and various, so we need to get 2 vests for individuals that are, that want to do ride-alongs with us, because we don't have any of those, because those are expired as well. So I'm asking for a total cost of $16,080 upfront, and then the BVP program through the Department of Justice will reimburse us half of $800 per vest, which is $6,372, but we have to pay it first. So we will, I'm requesting the $16,008, and we will be recouped $63.72.
Any questions?
Yes. I'm just really curious how a vest company warranties their product. Do they, if it doesn't work and the officer dies, if they're shot at, do they warranty it? It's a comment, not to be flippant, but.
I don't disagree with you. I don't know, I believe they've done enough testing. There's a subject matter experts that they've done enough testing where they don't feel comfortable with their product after 5 years. Like they're saying, back in the day, I had a vest probably for 10 years, but now they're doing more studies and they have better technology and they understand their vests a little more, where maybe they don't trust the fact that after 5 years that the vest will do their job.
I'm just wondering how they stand behind their warranty is kind of what I was wondering, so.
They do, they shoot them. I mean, these vests go through, like I said, a lot of
I'm sorry,
tests.
if 4.5 years later, somebody is shot and it doesn't withhold the bullet, I mean, how do they warranty that, is what I'm wondering.
That's a great question.
Trustee Powell, they also, most officers carry a steel plate right up front too, also in their vest. So after, you know, like the chief said, years and years of heat, cold, whipping it around in your locker, back and forth, they break down and that's it. So there are some Supervisor Cole asked, good question, what do they do with the old vests? A lot of times they'll recycle them and then send them off to rural communities, at least that's what I've been told in the past, that they don't have the money. And there were guys that were like, that weren't wearing the vest prior. So they're put to good use and they're not worried about the warranty. They're happy to have it.
So I was going to ask, what do we do with our vests when they're done?
We've done 2 options. We either send them overseas for like the places overseas don't have the same quality that we do. So police departments over there, overseas, that don't get vests ever unless they get donated. And like you said, other communities that can't afford them will get them as well. Both are run through the Department of Justice. These are the programs that we have. We ship them off either way. It just depends which one is up at that time.
All right, then I wondered, is this from budgeted funds?
This will be from equipment acquisitions, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, that being said, looking for a motion.
Make a motion.
Mr. Ruggles?
Make a motion to approve the police officer body armor purchase in the initial total cost before reimbursement of $16,080, a total cost after reimbursement of $9,708.
Have a motion, looking for support? Support. Support from trustee Smith. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Request to approve 2023 Police Department Fleet Vehicle Purchase. Before we get into this, the Chief and I had some discussion, and as we go through rotation of some of the vehicles that we have done in the past to repurpose them potentially for a location within the township, my first question to the Chief was, are any of these worthy? And his answer to me was no. So the vehicles that we're replacing, he is not comfortable in putting them in their repurposing into the township general fleet for any other vehicles being used.
And what would be the reason for that?
So I will, that may have been my fault for not communicating correctly. The vehicles that we just sold.
Those were the ones.
Were those the ones?
Those are the ones.
I beg your pardon. Okay.
that we sold that didn't feel comfortable saying, hey, this is a good quality vehicles. Because these vehicles that we go through, they get run, they are run all the time. And some vehicles hold up better than others just because of the way it was made. The vehicles that are coming up through these three that will be replaced are of much better quality.
Okay.
We are in fact going to recycle one of them for our detective bureau because we're having such a hard time finding vehicles to purchase because the government bids just aren't there anymore.
I stand corrected. I'm a few vehicles behind. That was a
Correct.
conversation we did have, but it referred to the other ones.
Correct.
Thank you.
This is
Okay.
a brand new lot.
Brand new group. Thank
So
you.
we potentially could repurpose all of these?
Not, there are two out of the three are in good order. The third one, it's just not, like I said, some of the vehicles don't last as long as the others, and there's two out of the three that are of good standing. The third one, I would definitely sell.
Okay.
Well,
thank
that'll
you.
be an option. We'll look at our needs internally and decide what we're going to do from that point. But I wanted to bring that point up because it was a concern of the board previously.
Sure.
But again, I misspoke on which lot it was, on the
Correct.
previous lot. I
Chief,
think, correct.
And some are run longer than others just because of the when we get the vehicles, how we get the vehicles, how the vehicles are used, how long it took to replace the other vehicles, and some have 80-some thousand miles, some have 70-some thousand miles, and that makes a big difference on the quality that comes through. Because I know back in the day when the economy took a hit, we were keeping vehicles an extra year, and it cost a lot of money, or an extra 2 years, 1 to 2 years, it costs a lot of money to keep those vehicles in working and running order, because they kept on going to the shop, because, like I said, they have a shelf life, because police officers need those cars for emergency purposes, and they drive them all the time, and sometimes you gotta drive them a little harder than a normal car.
I would ask that our vehicle summary be updated then with this, because you just commented it took a lot of money to keep them going. In reading the report that we have,
That didn't include police vehicles. They have their own inventory report, I believe.
Yeah, that's his
on that
township.
one. That was
But we
township.
asked that
yeah,
report to
could we
encompass.
get copies of those as well then?
We have it, we update them daily.
I thought that was sent along with that package, apparently.
No,
there
it was
a-
just the township vehicles.
Right, but we did ask for police vehicles to be included in everything.
And fire department
Yeah.
vehicles as well. Right.
Chief, how much did you send those, or you just sold those 3 other cars, are correct?
They averaged, they probably averaged 15,000 apiece. Anywhere, one was 13, one was 16, I think, and so we got, I believe, in the high 14s to 15,000 apiece.
So essentially, we're going to be, with us being able to get high trade-in values, we're going to be able basically to cover one of those cars.
Yes,
Okay.
one and then some, yes.
Yeah, one and then some. Okay, I'm
So,
sorry.
I have one last question. I think I asked you this question almost every time this happens, but the mixed fleet. So now we're going to have some Fords, have some
Yes, we are
Dodges. and-
transferring, this is.
I always ask you about the mixed fleet. So-
Yes, this is the second year of the Dodge Durangos.
So do you plan on transitioning into Dodge? Are you just looking,
Yes.
so, okay, so
Yeah.
that's your future plan?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
Go ahead, Chief.
And as you can see, the price is, the price has gone up, probably about $4,000 per vehicle, because of the status of the economy and the ability to get vehicles. It has gone up quite a bit. And Zod is always comparable to the others. And since they are a company that, or a dealership in White Lake, we like to support our local dealership. So I'm requesting that the board approve the total amount of $120,009 for the purchase of 3 Dodge Durango Pursuit vehicles from Zod. And that will come out of equipment acquisitions next year.
Okay, questions, comments?
Quickly, when,
Mr. Ruggles?
sorry, expected delivery of these vehicles?
It could be anywhere from the end of this year on December to January, February. It just
Okay, thank you.
depends on when they get made.
And I guess I do have another question, Chief. If a resident in White Lake Township wanted to purchase a vehicle, a used vehicle from the township, do we just farm them out to somewhere else, or do we advertise them for bid?
We advertise them for bid, and then we auction them.
We auction them through, obviously not through the spinal column.
They're.
How is it advertised?
Through
Oakland
Mitten.
County auction.
We do it through Mitten, which is
Okay.
a state, and a lot of times taxi, like the last group that bought it was a group out of Chicago that purchased them, which was a cab company.
Okay.
And, but they're sealed bids, so we open them up in the clerk's office. They all come in, we document who the bidder was and the price, and then.
I'm just curious how that happened.
Yeah, it's a good.
All right.
They call, the clerks call the companies that bid and say, hey, there's another bid coming up. If you guys want to bid, here's what we have. So we actively seek out, people who have already shown interest in the year before, and we let them know, and we always get new people that bid on them as well.
So how would the residents, if a resident wanted to put in a bid, how would the resident do
We
that?
posted it on our website.
Yeah, we have it on our website.
In the past, and we have had residents purchase vehicles in the past.
I didn't know that, and now the rest of the residents do know that. Yep, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and most, to your point, like the county, trustee Smith was saying, like Oakland County just had a huge forfeiture vehicles, things like that. So we had a couple residents come in and purchase some tires. I think it was from you, Aaron, some old tires and.
No, they were ours.
Okay, generators. We had some generators and equipment through DPS. So if we can sell it and make money on
I've
it.
got a stove for sale now if you want one. Yeah, all right, moving on. So we have, yes, Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah. So is V6 preferable? You want a V6?
Yes.
You don't want anything faster?
The next step up is the Hemi, which is another 25 to $3,000 for the purchase, and I don't believe that we need Hemis, just because they are extremely fast, and I think the V6s perform in such a manner that it's best fit for White Lake Township.
These things scream. The V6s are very, very quick to response.
Must have a turbo.
I took Terry for a ride in one, and he was impressed at one time, so. Okay, looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve,
What's that?
approve the 2023 Police Department fleet vehicle purchases,
For $120,009 not to exceed.
$120,009 not to exceed.
I have a motion, looking for support.
Support.
I have a motion, I have support. Trustee Smith, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. Consideration of preliminary site plan, Cosmos Car Wash.
Thank you. So before you is the Cosmos Car Wash preliminary site plan. This site is one of the, located in one of the Meyer outlots. Let's go over there really quick. It is the corner opposite the new Taco Bell. So if you look at the screen, it is this lot right here. It is just about 1.9 acres in size. The orientation is, as you look at this, north is to the right. You can see that it's labeled Meyer Private Drive. That is where they will get access, not onto the Bogey Lake Road extender or onto M59. But jumping ahead there, on October 6th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing. The property is owned planned business, but as such, it was required in the ordinance that there be a public hearing held so that the public in the surrounding area would know that there was an intent to develop this land. And Cosmos Car Wash received a recommendation for preliminary site plan approval from the Planning Commission at that same meeting after the public hearing. There were no residents there that wished to speak about this that I can recall, and there was no one that had any concern. There are no residents anywhere nearby. The applicants are here today if you have any questions for them, but for the most part, they've met just about every requirement of the ordinance. There are a few deficiencies which they're going to work through through the final site plan process. And the one thing I want to mention is I think initially they had offered a $15,000 contribution to the, was it the Pathway Fund or was it the Park Fund?
Parks funds or sidewalk
Parks
funds?
Fund, yes. And the Planning Commission kind of maybe pushed back a little bit on it, and I believe the the offer now is a $20,000 contribution to the park fund. The planning commission isn't aware of that yet, but they had basically challenged them to come up with some other public benefit in addition, and they just said, listen, we're already going to make a contribution, we'll just increase it. And so at the staff level, we think that's a reasonable contribution, given the number of modifications that they'll need with their project. So we would agree with the planning commission that preliminary site plan should be granted for this project. Just like the Taco Bell, the roads are in, the utilities are to the site. The sidewalk is in on Bogey Lake Road. They'll be putting this piece of sidewalk in right here, as you can see on my screen, which would be right here to their driveway. So go down and you can see what this car wash looks like. Okay. So that's the exterior of a car wash. It's a nice looking building. They're using high quality materials. They've got glass, they've got tile, they've got some masonry. When I think of a car wash, I don't think of a building that looks this nice. So again, the planning commission recommends site plan approval, as does the staff. And if there's any questions that you have for me, I'd be happy to answer them. And if you would like to speak with the applicants, they're here in the front row ready to go as well.
Questions or comments from the board? Trustee Smith.
So thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So my comments are not particularly about this project in general, but I want to take this opportunity to speak to my colleagues about perhaps putting some proactive measurements in the future that similar entities can't be so close together. This is, no offense to your project at all, but this is a really silly spot for another car wash when there's one already behind McDonald's, and then there's a small car wash directly across the street at Shell gas station, and then we just approved one about a mile down the road on 59. So I'd like to consider in the future moving forward that we put in some kind of new ordinances or policies that there can't be that many car washes that close together, or fast food, or whatever the same likeness is, that we consider something in the future that we can't have a smoke shop every mile. They have to at least be 2 or 3 miles apart. Because this location is, unfortunately, I don't know how you're gonna staff it in this economy. I hope you don't put the car wash right adjacent to you out of business. I wish you would look for elsewhere in the community, to be honest. I legally can't vote no because you can build your car wash here, but I have to state that this is not, in my opinion, an ideal location for our residents.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, I agree with Liz. I was totally about ready, I was gonna say the same thing. And once I realized, because I'm geographically challenged, once I realized what corner it was, I was like, why so close to the other car wash? I was 100% with you.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're independently owned and operated? Yeah, no, that was absolutely my concern too, Liz, that we had,
I mean, we literally are gonna have 3 car washes on the same corner now.
yeah. Why, other than the obvious, why White Lake, why that corner?
Yes, and if you could,
They'll have a minute to address us.
yeah,
Okay, that's fine.
because I'd like to know what kind of car wash it is, too, yeah.
Yeah, let's get through. You may, please.
Yeah.
But
We would
just,
like
I
to
want to
hear from
finish
you.
up here first, but please remain at the podium. So your question was to why, I will make one statement about
Yeah.
your concerns. Number one, we are only allowed by law to allow the property that's owned appropriately.
Yep.
If there want to be
Yep.
7 car washes in a row, so be it. It's their business plan to make it work or not. And this township is not in a position to put any restriction thereof.
Actually, I checked with council, and we do have the capability to restrict in the future.
I wouldn't want to battle that in court. Okay, so.
Lisa, we did have that conversation,
Yeah,
and that is something this board can do in the future.
yeah.
Through an amendment to the zoning ordinance.
It would have to amend the zoning ordinance, but that's a discussion for another time.
Right,
So-
it is a discussion for another time, but this is the opportunity to discuss it and bring it up, to think about it in the future.
I believe in the free enterprise system. That would be like saying that they can't have a McDonald's next to a Taco Bell, you can't have fast food restaurants next to each other, and, oh, by the way, let's not have an engineering company on 59 because there's one 2 doors down. Oh, and by the way, let's not have a cabinet shop here because there's another one
My
a couple doors down.
position is we want to support.
Et cetera, et cetera.
We want
et
to
cetera.
support our White Lake businesses, so we want them all to be successful. So spacing them out might make them more successful.
Understand your concern. Okay.
I had a quick question.
Mr. Roman.
Do you own any other car washes, or is this your first?
We are currently developing throughout the Detroit metropolitan area. First two,
I need your name for the record, sir,
my name is Cameron Ray. I'm president of Cosmos Car Wash.
and address.
2204 Brockton Avenue in Royal Oak.
Thank you.
So this is part of a Cosmos chain then?
Yes, I'm constructing a chain of car washes here in the Detroit metropolitan area. Yes, sir.
Sell anything else inside, or it's just car wash?
We will be truly express exterior, so, customer comes in, we'll have attendants there to greet them, they'll shift into neutral as they enter into the tunnel, we'll push them through, and then they'll be able to exit and use our free self-service vacuums.
Okay, well, thank you for coming to White Lake.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any question? Mr. Powell?
Actually, you described it a little bit. I was hoping that you'd, certainly a modern car wash, you'd be providing a service different than the other car washes. Sometimes I want somebody to vacuum my car for me, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't want to sit there and watch a machine go around me, and which is different than the one across the street from you here. But that's a tunnel drive as well with blowers. How is your car wash different than the one across the street, next to you on the north side of the road?
Well, accessibility is one of the number one things that we're looking at. Number of vacuum stalls. So, everybody can say we have vacuums for customers to use, but when you put 3 to 4 vacuums parallel beside the building, that serves as a traffic deficiency. And I mean, we're going to put, anywhere from 19 to 20, 25 if we can throughout our development. So we want to not only advertise that you can come in and use our self-service vacuums, but we want to have the number and the number available for you to be able to use them. In addition to that, like I spoke to a little bit earlier, increased touch points. We will have attendants throughout the lot, which I'm sure as a lot of people can see the nature and the trend of the car wash industry in general is going toward less labor. It's going toward, if I need somebody, I got to go play Where's Waldo on the site. Whereas for us, we will have people located throughout the lot greeting you at the tunnel entrance. We'll also have attendants positioned in our free vacuum lanes, providing our customers with free towels, and just, kind of shaking hands, kissing babies, and just ensuring that the customer has a pleasant visit. And in addition to that, on our high volume days, we will have attendants at our ingress and egress points, just kind of directing traffic, making sure that everybody feels totally comfortable with the volume that is circulating throughout the site.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments from the board? Mr. Ruggles, Planning Commission, have any comment?
No, nothing that stands out.
Okay, all right.
And since it was brought up by Trustee Smith, to try to limit the free market system would be tough, because when I go to a corner for a Subway, each of my grandkids want to go to a different one at the same time. So we end up going to 3 fast food restaurants right there, and I'd like to not have to drive a mile away in order to have the options that I want. So you can't just pick out car washes. You're the only ones that we're going to control. We're not going to control anything else.
I'm not suggesting, I'm not picking on you.
No, Trustee Smith,
I'm not suggesting just car washes. But it is something we might want to consider in the future of not having the exact same product, so many in one spot. Maybe we want to space things out for our residents' best service.
I was very pleased that they offer a different type service than a couple of the others. Otherwise, I was going to say there's a mark on White Lake Township with the dirtiest cars in the entire county.
Must be in Oakland County.
Yeah,
Dirt
that's
roads.
exactly right.
I can assure the committee that Cosmos Car Wash will be a business that White Lake Township will be very proud of. We will not be the stereotypical car wash by any means. We'll be one of the best looking businesses in the township, landscape wise, cleanliness, exterior lighting. Our staff will be very professional, like you said, Trustee Smith. How are we going to staff it? Our base wage is going to be $13.50 an hour. plus the ability to make up to $5 an hour in tips for our general employees, not management, not, hire assistant manager or anybody. That is general baseline labor staff. So we're going to pay our employees very well. Everybody will be eligible for benefits. So I want to bring a different view of the car wash to this township so that you all can be proud of it and that we can, have a business that you guys can refer people to, and it won't be the quote unquote stereotypical car wash where you go in and you can't talk to anybody, and the people that you do talk to, you don't want to talk to them. Our people will be looking to talk to you, and we'll be very, very happy for you to come in and interact with us.
Thank you.
That sounds nice, thank you.
No? Okay. You were going to say something.
I was just gonna, in defense of Trustee Smith.
Thank you.
There are certain uses where it's not uncommon that there are distance spacing requirements, such as smoke shops
Sure.
and liquor stores and.
Adult
so it's not
entertainment uses.
uncommon
We have
to-
some of that, adult entertainment uses in our ordinance where there has
A spacing requirement. I just wanted to.
Well,
Thank you.
franchise.
I appreciate that very much.
Franchises, like
Themselves
UPS or
have that.
McDonald's, Taco Bell, Wendy's, and all those, they have to stay within a certain distance, like 5-6 miles.
All right, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? Mr. O'Neill, you're looking for a preliminary approval?
I would say yep, not said as well as you, and clearly.
Preliminary
Preliminary
approval
approval subject to the review
Of Cosmos
comments.
Car Wash, subject to staff and consultant review.
Yes, and this one will have a development agreement because all the Meyer outlots are
And
planned
subject to
business.
development agreement.
Well, it's going to come back to you, so you will see their development agreement
That is a
toward
motion.
the end.
I made a motion.
Support.
I have motion, I have support, all in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you and
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you. My car's dirty right now.
Next item, 10E, request to approve New Hope landscape reduction request. Mr. O'Neill.
I have one of these folders for each of you, except for Lisa. Because there's only 7, Lisa, not because I'm trying to be mean to you.
We'll share.
So Rumi's here tonight. We haven't seen Rumi since his site plan was approved back in 2020. He's moving along and is nearing completion of his project and had come back to the planning commission. While I can certainly let him speak for himself, yeah, he's behind that pole still. He'd come back seeking some relief from the approved landscaping that is required on his site. And, at the staff level, we didn't have any objection. I'm asking the planning commission. He had asked for a reduction of 60%. The planning commission gave him a reduction of 40%. Is my math right, Rumi? Yes.
Yeah.
So I should just read the memo. So he is going to plant 20% more than what he's currently got on site per the recommendation of the planning commission, which the staff has no objection to. In the last 24 hours or so, 36 hours, Rumi has supplied our office with a plan that actually goes beyond what he had been required to plant, I should say, or what the planning commission had suggested he be allowed to or required to plant, and is providing an additional 24% as opposed to the additional 20 that is being requested
In the letter,
tonight.
okay.
And I think he's comfortable with that, so I don't want to speak for him, but I think he'd probably be okay with you saying the 23 or 24% that he's proposing is acceptable if you so choose. So, again, this does not constitute a minor amendment, so I'd let him know that I can't sign off on it. This is significant, so it needed to go to the planning commission, and it needs to be here at the board, and I think we need to amend the development agreement after the fact to at least, which I'd actually request tonight, that you authorize a simple amendment to the development agreement that is signed by the supervisor and the clerk that just memorializes this action that has been taken, so that way we're just sort of done with it tonight and we can move ahead.
So he's put himself in a better position.
He is. He's added 4% more than the planning commission had recommended. And, again, I have no objection to this. And
you are in support of it?
I am.
Okay. First of all, everything down near the road looks great. It's all coming together very nicely. That is an area that where obviously you have not spared anything because it looks very full And once those plants mature, it'll really turn into something very, very nice. And even internally, you have quite a bit of plants. I was trying to figure out where the other 20% of plants were going to go. So, since you're not growing a small forest in there, but nonetheless, it looks real good.
Yeah, a good deal of the landscaping, and the planning commission really wanted to make sure that the entryway stayed more robust. And I think that's where a good number of the additional plantings are going to go. And then there's some courtyard plantings that the residents will enjoy, and that's kind of where the rest of them are going to go. What you can see on the screen here is an aerial probably from this spring. It was certainly, as you can see, before all the grass was planted, but you can see there's quite a bit of landscaping that was preserved on this site. I think Rumi had about 100-foot green belt around the west and the south side of this site, where none of the trees, or the vast majority of the trees, were left alone, with the exception of maybe the area of the detention basin. So it's already a heavily wooded site. And, I think actually some of the neighbors, or a neighbor spoke in his support at the planning commission, who lives immediately south of him, and said they can't even see the building. So the folks on High Point and the folks on Woods Edge won't be impacted by this change at all. It's more just the folks that are coming into the site.
And you're basically in the sugar bowl there, so it's tough to see anything from any altitude other than a drone. So you are in a good position. I was up on Trailside the other day looking at a few homes and talking to some neighbors, and as I drove back to the very end of the new part of Trailside, you had to look for your facility because you're way down there. So any questions, comments from the board at this time? Any questions for Rumi?
I guess I have a staff question. Should we take a look at the ordinance and allow for some deviation or some reduction in the requirements? If a site like this, there has to be a reason why we had that in the ordinance. Now, I understand that this project is way back out of the public view. What is the reason that we required this much landscaping up front?
So if this were a vacant site, if it were a cleared site, because we don't have a tree ordinance or a woodland protection ordinance, so, look no further than to the north. That used to be a woods, and now it has absolutely been completely cleared with the exception of the area around the perimeter. So the ordinance is designed for sites like this that turn from a forest into, a dust bowl. So if he didn't have 2,000 trees there already, there'd be plenty of room for all of this, and it would probably be necessary for him to kind of buffer himself from the neighbors. So I don't know that the ordinance is in any way deficient or overreaching. I think that it's sort of a perfect storm. He took a site that was perfectly suited for his use, where he was able to preserve a ton of the existing mature vegetation, and he has room to plant all of this. But you also know that sometimes it overgrows itself too. So I don't know that him planting everything that he was approved for would be a great thing. I think this is not a reduction just simply because of what's existing. I think it's a culmination of events and other factors, and you may or may not want to hear from Rumi about that. But I think our landscape ordinance is in pretty good order. Had this been looked at maybe from a landscape perspective more carefully at the beginning, I don't know that we would have required quite as much. But I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, certainly, and does our landscape ordinance. And again, when I do a site plan, I always try to save as many trees as possible and then get credit for those existing trees that we're going to save, and we offset those that then are needed to be planted. So does our ordinance allow that?
Could you repeat that last part? Because I was thinking about what I was going to say and not really paying attention.
Modification of the landscape requirements by saving existing trees, one-for-one credit or something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, we'd be better off doing that because we're going to keep a mature tree rather than a sapling that's going to take 50 years to. But I would also say, and I don't know if you're going to say this because this is really more in your wheelhouse, but sometimes when the site's compact like this and there are utilities in a lot of the open areas, Aaron doesn't want, Mike doesn't want utilities to be encumbered by vegetation that's going to eventually cause them to deteriorate.
Absolutely.
So I think on a site like this where you've got water and sewer running through certain points or parts of this, you're limited as to what you can plant and where you can plant it. So when he cleared just a very kind of precise area and built a building and put a parking lot in, and then has utilities all in the mixer too, it's a big site, but there's not a lot of room to add more plantings too. And I know you were going to say something, but.
Yeah, so along those lines, I do agree with Sean. The ordinance can't possibly be written in a way that it perfectly fits every scenario. And we're going to address this again when we get to some of my agenda items on here tonight. So there are always going to be sites like this that maybe don't kind of fit the mold as, typical normal development process, where you've got a site that's in a bowl way back in the middle of the woods, heavily wooded area. And then you've got a developer that, is willing to build essentially what's the Great Wall of White Lake all the way around this, somehow saving mature trees literally 10 feet behind this, massive retaining wall. So I think that this is the correct process for, addressing these sites where the ordinance just doesn't quite fit everything perfectly. Because for the most part, most of the developments are like the neighbors to this site, Trailside Meadows, the Bluffs, Hidden Lake Crossing, Williams Lake Crossing, Williams Lake Crossing itself. All around this, we've got developments that completely, to use Sean's phrase, denuded the property of all, trees right to the boundary. So in those instances, with mass grading, you need to have a robust ordinance that requires those developers to bring back a lot of that vegetation to create the environment that people would want to live in.
So I asked that question just to make sure that maybe in the future, a landscape plan can say, we're going to save this tree and to offset having to plant anything, but if they accidentally take that tree down, then we hit them with penalties and additional plantings to replace that tree that they were supposed to save.
Communities that have a woodland ordinance do just that.
Right.
They give you for a certain DBH or certain tree size, they give you credit. And then if you're going to take them down, I don't want to say they penalize you, but they make you replace them. So you cut down a 50-year-old maple tree and you've got to plant 20 new ones. And so that's in the past, and it has been a while since we've talked about a woodland ordinance.
I'm not in favor of a woodland ordinance.
Right, and I don't think that's not, but I think maybe there's a way where, to your point, next time we do a go-around on the ordinance, we look at trying to acknowledge at least in some way that credit could be given or should be given or would be given for saving mature or specimen trees.
A site like this would definitely be a candidate.
Okay, any other questions? Mr.
I was going to make a motion, if I may.
Supervisor Coyle, may I address just for a
Don't need
minute?
to say a thing.
Well, no, I just
good
wanted to start by thanking I know I wasn't here, it was virtual 2 years ago when you folks approved it. It's the first time I'm meeting with some of you. What you need to know, which you probably already do, is Sean, Justin, Hannah, and Aaron Potter, Mike, your engineer, they run an awesome team. We are built in different counties in mid-Michigan. From the beginning, get-go, they talked to our better angels. It would have been very easy to take, it's a 21-acre site. We are building on 3 acres. We have preserved 18 acres. Out of that, 10 is heavily wooded. Initially, when the $500,000 cost for the retaining wall came up, I was like, really? I want to spend that kind of money? I could build a bigger building, right? But all the neighbors, the relationships we have been able to foster through this process, this is by far for all of our sites, and I don't want to put the other ones down. On the other ones, we had to put a lot of plantation around. I love the natural wooded feel. And the credit goes to our neighbors and Sean. We sat down with them before we put pen to paper and we committed we are not gonna, it would have been so easy to put lots of cottages and others to add more density, but I know traffic is a huge issue, and I see it because I come out of that site every day. I just wanted to thank the whole team here. It's been a great collaborative experience, and I would welcome you all Our leadership team has been placed now for 10 months that they have been working out the model. We've gotten the local township, all the different approvals. We're working with the state and should have those in fairly short order. Welcome you to visit with us, and it's been nothing but a pleasure working with the team here. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Ramesh.
Thank you for complimenting our staff. I appreciate that. And I attended your ribbon cutting, and it's a lovely piece of property. You've done a really nice job. It's a beautiful product. So we're glad to have you in White Lake.
Thanks, Ramesh. I wasn't going to have you worry about 4% of trees, okay? So, all right, thank you. Okay, Mr. Roman.
Yeah, motion to amend the development agreement to plant 24% more plant material than is on the site currently.
I'll support that motion.
Can we offer some modifications to that?
I would say the site plan and development agreement to reflect, and I don't know if it's maybe not quite 24, it's 23 and some change. Could we use the figure 23? If you're comfortable with that?
To include the site amend the site plan and the development agreement to plant 23% more plant material than is on site currently.
And authorize.
Whatever our attorney suggests.
Authorize the supervisor to sign the amendment to the development agreement so it doesn't have to come back before the board.
So moved.
So moved. Okay, we have a motion. I will support that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. I like that. That's
getting
good.
late.
It's getting late, yeah. Next item. Next item is a request, as we have gone through the township in a variety of different job descriptions and positions throughout our township. We have continued to review. The latest was Kathy Gordonier, our Senior Citizen Director. She does an outstanding job, and upon Kathy DeRocher looking into this, along with our labor attorney, and looking at the field that's out there, there was definitely a need to make a change in her compensation package to keep us at current with the times, so to speak, because we were, I believe, a little bit behind there. She does a hell of a job, and, I had somebody say one time, well, what does she do there to keep so busy? I said, well, to go drive by there at any given day. And I said, you'll find out. You pull into the parking lot and there's, one day there might be only 6 cars. The next day there's 46 cars. So it's interesting. And fortunately, I have the opportunity to go in there and talk to them from time to time about different things. And she is definitely complimented by all of the individuals that go in there. And she runs a pretty tight ship, and I think she looks out for the township's benefit. So I would like to see us adopt this revised job description, which is not necessarily part of this because that's just done from the internal level, but the pay scale, the new Senior Center Director pay scale, that would be starting at 61,600, capping at 70,684. And with her experience to date, it was felt that she should be put at 67,318. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr.
Yeah, she does one heck of a great job taking care of our seniors. I don't know where she gets her energy from, but God bless her. She is every bit deserving of this move.
Yeah.
I agree. Kathy does a great job, and she does extra things when asked. Like she came in during our tornado last summer. Yep. She helped people safely enter the township when we needed her. She does things that, above and beyond her job description, and she's a great asset to White Lake Township.
When we had a tornado, she was like right there on the spot.
Yeah.
What do we got to do?
We sat together for hours at Dublin Senior Center. She does above and beyond.
So it was pretty good. Any other comments from Mr.?
I sit on the Senior Advisory Board, and Kathy is enthusiastic, always willing to help, and I think it's well earned.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? I would like a motion. Oh, and this will be concurrent with the next pay period.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the Senior Center Director wage reclassification as presented, effective with the next pay.
Support that. Motion and support. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Okay. No opposed. Thank you very much. Moving on to request the water tower 1 and 2 exterior cleanings. Too bad the car wash guys can't help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we went out to, as you know, our water towers are in dire need for another cleaning. We requested bids from 4 companies that do this type of work. One bidder couldn't get to us this fall, so he didn't return a bid. Another one didn't return a bid or any explanation. I did receive 2 bids from National Wash Authority, both towers, $14,600. From Pittsburgh Tank and Tower Group, $55,725. I'm requesting approval for the project for an amount not to exceed $14,600 to be awarded to National Wash Authority.
That's a great price, Aaron.
Yeah, that is a great
That's a
price.
super price.
So moved, Mr. Supervisor.
Yes.
He moved.
Oh, you
I
moved?
approval.
Oh, you moved to approve?
I'll support
Andrew
it.
supported.
Support, moved, all in favor?
Aye.
Clean it up, okay, good. All right, very good. Next item, request a deferral of sanitary ordinance 38-514, 1385 Sugden. As you know, we've extended our main down, what road is that? I can never remember that street.
Hillway.
Thank you, Hillway. And one of the houses that's on the corner, that's a weird kind of shaped lot. Do we have it on screen? Okay.
Pardon?
Do we have that on screen?
The corner of Sugden and Hillway.
Sugden and Hillway,
Gateway,
and the
if you
house
want.
kind of sits in kind of a quirky spot, and their system is in failure. They are in pump and haul mode, and they want to hook up to this, and it just so happens that that pipe is sitting in their front yard. So I move that we get them hooked up. And anybody have a question, Mr. Powell?
Makes sense.
Yep.
Was that a motion?
That's kind of a motion, yeah, I guess.
No, all right.
It's not really.
I'll make the motion.
I'll let you make the motion.
I move to approve the deferral of the sanitary sewer ordinance 38-514 for 1385 Sugden Lake Road due to the emergency condition of their sanitary on-site sewage disposal system.
I will support that.
Under discussion?
Discussion.
I want to thank our staff. I've been pushing to think outside the box for years, and this is a great option. And one of these days, the Sanitary Sewer Committee will make a presentation before this board.
We'll have another meeting, though.
You think?
Yeah.
And ask that this be done a great deal more in the township. My estimate would be that he would be spending $30,000 to replace the septic system when there's a sewer out in front. That doesn't even make sense.
His front yard.
That's correct.
Yeah, doesn't make sense. I agree. And I appreciate the fact that, sometimes we have to think outside the box and make it work. And it's just going to benefit everyone that's involved in this, in particular with our sensitive environmental areas that we have with the lakes. And we know from all the efforts that Aaron put in to get, I'm having a problem with my Pinecrest, with Pinecrest and going through all those canals and everything back there. That was a huge endeavor to get everybody on the same bus there. And yet we were able to do it. And I know for a fact that that's going to make a significant difference in the water quality of those areas. And we've already had a couple people come in on a couple of those canals that now are going to actually do improvements to their home because now they can do it. So there's the real upside for people. Now, we don't have to worry about the water.
Which
Which
specific
house?
house is it, guys?
You put your cursor on it, Aaron.
Right on the corner there.
That home there, okay,
Thank you.
fantastic.
It's
End of
just
our
on that
Hillway
quirky
main
spot.
Literally ends right here.
Perfect.
Wow.
Yeah. So how,
Not designed to
How
go
could you
this
not?
direction.
Yeah.
So, hence the.
Can I say something?
yes,
I think it's important, Aaron, for the benefit of the public, that people understand that this isn't a waiver of the requirement. It's only a deferral, that they're still going to have to extend, whether it be along Sugden or Hillway, whichever is in the best interest of the master plan and the sewer system. But the reason for the deferral now, and the way you had explained it to me, is that it's impractical and it would require facilities that are not good for our system, for the overall system.
Right. It would be injurious to the system and the resident because of the cost involved in extending the sewer and the structures that would be involved to extend one house. We've talked about this several other meetings. This is kind of the same
So
example.
it's practical means to make this solution. Thank you very much. I appreciate that,
Your
everyone.
motion supported?
We get motion support. I think we are all in favor.
Did you vote already?
We didn't vote yet. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, see, that's what happens when it gets late. I'm going to vote for a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll support that.
Was there a motion or
I made the motion.
for a 5-minute recess?
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Roll call vote, right?
That's right.
I'm gonna bring something
There's
to.
another chair.
No, it's just that there's no lumbar support in these chairs.
There
So
are.
we're here for the
There's a
chairs
corner,
have
right?
to come. Oh, it's all right.
That I'm dragging it across the street.
Yeah, you were close. I told you 7:30 tomorrow. Agenda.
Documents pay.
Not so fast.
I know, that's why I'm standing here leaning over.
Oh, okay.
We know that,
I prefer that you do.
Because the one time I don't say it is the time you face it, right?
Dan would enjoy it.
I would.
Well, I agree, I'll be honest with you, but I had to hear your voice a little more, to be honest with you. No, I agree. Not too
Came up
far.
to me and I kind of grabbed her and I broke her and she was.
No, right there, not too.
She still doesn't drink coffee.
Okay, I won't, yeah. So speaking of that, you need to talk about
That's how it's identified.
in your trust. No, it's great.
Couldn't believe it.
No, but I want to talk about it, but you're yelling at everyone last month.
I'll
I'm
say
like,
something.
yeah, I know. But no, Mike, trust me, I thought the same thing. You did talk. I'm like, you came up and you were very friendly, and I'm like, the voice didn't match the overall presentation, so I'm.
Awesome.
We came in late because
It
we
must
had
have
an
somewhat
hour
muffled my
meeting
voice.
across the
No, we go, once you started talking and
You could tell.
yeah, but it took me a few minutes going like, who's this
How did he
creeper?
do?
Not really. I'm gonna use the restroom, but for a minute there, I thought that, Mike, so she's the
Glad.
only one that thought that.
Yeah.
We missed Lieutenant Willie.
Yeah, yes.
No, it was good.
Yeah, I think he was teaching, tonight
Yeah.
at Paris or somewhere.
Sean was texting me, this was gonna be a
Oh, I don't usually that goes fine.
Second session, we will address item 10I, Resolution 22031 to approve MDOT 2023 annual performance. This is an annual requirement that the township receives for work that is performed within the right-of-way, and it's kind of like, got to have it. So it's just one of those requirements. Mr. Powell?
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the MDOT 2023 annual performance, I think that's annual performance permit.
Yes.
Resolution 22-031 as presented.
I have a motion. I have support from Mr. Ruggles. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I often wonder why they call it a performance resolution. Just performing work, I guess? It must be it.
It's a resolution in lieu of a performance bond.
Yeah, okay. Next item is the Charter Township, White Lake Township General Appropriations Act. This resolution has the definitions of the chief administrator, fiscal officer, public hearings of the budget, estimated revenues in section 5, and a variety of other pieces of information pertinent to our financial snapshot and our budget. The millages, the estimated expenditures, adoption of a budget by reference, adoption of budget by cost center, appropriation, not a mandate to spend, periodic fiscal reports, limit on obligations and payments, and budget monitoring. And also that there is if you're a violation of this act, you can get yourself in some hot water. So that being said, we pass this annually as a connection to our budget. Mr. Treasurer, do you have care to make any questions from the board first of all? Okay.
Make a motion if you like one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please do.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 General Appropriations Act, Resolution 22-033.
And I need support. I have support from Mr. Roman. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Next item is our, 1 second, JK, is our 2023 township budget. As all of you, we had discussion last month and were requested to contact any and all department heads and Elaine to ask of any questions. We are passing a balanced budget in all departments. We are in very good financial shape. I did have a note here from Elaine, of which I have misplaced momentarily, which is giving her recommendation to adopt this budget from her financial standpoint. Any questions or comments from the board?
I'll support that.
I will take mine as a motion, your support. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kowa.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Treasurer Roman.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item is the request to refer to Section 61, review of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act to the Planning Commission, the Civic Center, Public Safety Building, and Stanley Park. This is a little strange how this reads, but once I read it about 3 times, I finally figured it out. But
Yeah, and I'll read to you in a minute because I think some of this is important just to have in the record, because sometimes I go off script a bit. But I want to start by saying that I believe this is the first time that the township has considered anything like this. This requirement is from Section 61 of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, and that's the 2008 version. So we haven't done a whole lot of this kind of stuff, in that period of time. But that section of the Planning Enabling Act requires that the Planning Commission review and approve the location, character, and extent of new public streets, parks, open space, buildings, and other public facilities prior to construction or purchase in areas covered by a master plan, which would certainly be all of White Lake. All of White Lake is covered by our master plan. And the MPEA does not require a public hearing for Section 61 reviews, but the Section 61 review process begins by the Township Board referring the request to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission then has 35 days to take action. As we all know, and as the public knows widely, the Township Board plans to authorize construction and financing of a public safety building to house both the police and fire departments as well as a civic center building for our township hall purposes. This would be on the vacant parcels on Elizabeth Lake Road known as 1222-351-006. And also, we're planning to move ahead with construction of Stanley Park Phase 1, and that is commonly known as 10785 Elizabeth Lake Road, but that's parcel number 1227-100-014, just for the record. The ability of the township to maintain acceptable levels of service and quality of life for existing and new residents is the focus of these development efforts. And while the Township Board is committed to pursuing the aforementioned projects on its Elizabeth Lake Road properties, the Section 61 review process is a function of the Planning Commission and should be completed at this time. Staff suggests the Township Board initiate the Section 61 review of these projects by referral to the Planning Commission for its evaluation, which will be limited in scope as set forth in the MPEA. And I also want to thank Justin for doing some research on this and putting this memo together. Again, it's not something that I have ever worked on, not here, not anywhere. So it's something that it seems pretty straightforward, but is certainly an important part as we move ahead of the process. So I think it's as simple as a motion from you folks initiating a Section 61 review and referring this action to the Planning Commission for their evaluation.
Mr. Powell.
Mr. Supervisor, if I could ask Mr. O'Neill a question. In a normal process, a developer hires his consultants and they come in with a plan that the Planning Commission reviews. In this particular case, the township is the owner, developer, and the township, to my belief, has not completed its review and hasn't designed a site plan, does not know the precise location of anything. So if we initiate this Act 61 or Part 61, Section 61 review, since there's been no formal development, what is the Planning Commission actually going to review?
Planning Commission is going to review the kinds of land use and the kind of operation we intend to construct or develop in this area. Look at the master plan, look at the road network, look at the surrounding properties, and make a very generic determination that it's appropriate or not appropriate. We're not going to get into any kind of plan review. This is something that I think would be handled in 15 minutes at the Planning Commission, frankly. This is just a requirement and not anything that, there is, we've talked about this before, there's no planning enabling police that are going to show up and kick our door down, but this township does things the right way. We make our intentions known, and this is just another, act of transparency and compliance with, a mandate of the state. So I am not terribly concerned. Our recommendation is we're going to give the Planning Commission something similar to this and say, our recommendation is that you find that this is appropriate and it meets with the location, character, and extent, of the master plan. It's just that simple. We're not going to overkill this. This is just checking a box. And I don't want to say it that way, but it's just the truth. The truth is that we're going to do what the township wants to do, but we've got some hurdles along the way. And so this board is not going to be encumbered in any way by this process or by any action the Planning Commission takes as it relates to a Section 61 review.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Formality.
the Metro Act. You got to do it, if you want to get there. That being said, Mr. Powell, would you like to?
The one thing I want to just add, if we're going to seek further grant funds for any of this, I think it's important that, the state knows before we begin construction in the park that we've done this.
Yeah.
And that, any other grantors.
We can check our box.
We're right,
Yeah.
right. And it was put in place for a purpose, but we're not gonna spend a lot of time on it. We're gonna move through it.
Okay. Mr. Powell?
All right then, Mr. Supervisor, I move that we refer the Section 61 review of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act to the Planning Commission as this board has currently proposed.
I have a motion looking for support.
Support.
I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Resolution 22034, accepting the voluntary donation of vacant real property. Mr. Roman.
Thanks, Rick. Well, I was approached about a month ago by John Kohavi. John's a resident, and I think he's a member of the Civil Service Commission. But John came in and sat down and told me that he had a good friend that was interested in donating a piece of vacant property to White Lake Township. And I contacted the resident. His name is Eugene Ryerson. I had never met Mr. Ryerson before, but Gene is one of the founding members of the Highland House Restaurant. And he so graciously and generously wanted to donate a piece of property to the township. I think it's roughly a 6-acre piece. Oh, Sean's got it up. It's on the north side of 59. Is that the church next to it, Sean?
It is.
So
I think it's this, it's
right in there.
out.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit of water in there. But he was getting up, Gene was getting up there in age and wanted to give back to the township. And so today I'm asking the board to accept Mr. Ryerson's donation of property.
I just have one question. The map was not included in our packet, so can you just describe a little bit more where that is exactly? Can you zoom in again?
Actually, Aaron, can you fire this up in Gateway by chance?
It is the parcel, when you are at Lowe's and you are heading westbound towards the township here, just before the church and where the bridge is, where the pedestrian bridge that we put in a couple years ago with the path, that's the edge of his property. It includes that river frontage.
Okay.
And I'm going to lead up to something here I want to tell the board about that's really exciting that I've been working on for a couple of years, and this really comes into play. But that's that parcel of property right there. So it's really kind of in a great location, and it abuts the Woodside Bible Church, their eastern property line on the other side of the river, kind of in between there. So
Then there's a home, so it's not the home.
it is not the home. That
In
particular.
between that home and.
And the river, correct. That particular home, just so that you're aware of it, is on what I call a ribbon lot. It is only like 60 feet wide.
Yeah.
You know, and so people look at it and think there's a big parcel of land. It's not. It's actually, that house is on like it's on such a small ribbon that the folks there are contemplating now doing something else with it because they realize that they have limitations. But that is, can you see the lines over there?
Yeah.
This parcel. And you see where the river comes in right there at the bottom near the road?
Yep, it comes in.
Right in
and
there.
Goes
Yeah.
underneath the road there.
Yeah. So there is some wet, but there is some dry towards the back, the very back end of it. And it does have long-term development possibilities, but it also has long-term recreational possibilities, which I'll talk about in a minute. So, are you looking for a motion?
Yeah, and just so you all know, we asked him if, if we eventually sold that property, if he had in mind, kind of where he would like those proceeds to go. And he did mention he's got a soft spot for the senior community. So, we should keep that in mind. I'm looking for a motion to approve this resolution to accept the donation.
I'll make a motion. I'd like to approve Resolution 22-034, accepting the voluntary donation of vacant real property.
036.
036.
036.
I have a motion, looking for support?
Support.
I have support by Andrew Voorhees. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Now I'll tell you the real exciting part of this. For several years now, I have been trying to work with the Oakland County Parks to create a water trail within White Lake Township. And one of the first sites that we looked at was on the southern side of 59, right there, right across from this property. But we could not come to terms with the persons that own that property. They weren't interested in parting with it and/or granting an easement. Now that we have the parcel on the north side, there's just enough room that you can get in a canoe and sneak down underneath that culvert and go across. And we have now a potential drop-in site for a water trail. And then the pickup site is the property that we own over off Elizabeth Lake Road, just east of Union Lake Road. We have about a 5-acre parcel, 6-acre parcel. So
Big, but very small.
yeah, it's not real big.
much
Most of it's
usable.
wet. But it's big enough that you will be able to get an hour and 20, an hour 30-minute canoe ride and never have to leave White Lake Township.
Really?
Well, maybe like a kayak. I don't know about a canoe.
Yeah, you can get a canoe.
Kayak.
Well, when the water's up, you can take a canoe through there without any problem at all. Yeah. So it's going to be another amenity that hopefully we'll be able to have within our own community and will make us even that much more unique.
Cool.
And
Yeah, they tried some years back, the county, to put in a kayak drop across on the south side. So this is great.
yeah, so it's something, it gives us options in the future. So I just wanted to share that with you. Because at one point the county was talking about doing something, wanted to acquire their property to the south, and I thought, well, unless you're going to really guarantee us doing something, I'm not going to take it to the board and just give you the property. But now that we're on both ends of this thing, it puts another potential project in our portfolio for the future.
Yeah, and this was a team effort, you guys. I couldn't have done this without Rick's help, Sean's help, and Anthony's help, and Dave Heber. So thanks, guys.
Very good.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate everything. Resolution N, another one of those approved Crown Castle fiber agreement. They're going to run fiber around the township through the telecommunications as they do, and we just have to acknowledge the fact that they're going to do it.
I'd like to make a move.
Yes.
I just want to make sure the correct resolution number is 034, right?
22034.
Is that-
In here, it's different.
Yeah, we have it transfers.
I don't know how that happened. Okay.
So it would be
2034.
Oh, that is correct. Okay. 036. This is 34. Okay. Thank you. Corrected as noted. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, basically, this is a Metro Act with Crown Castle, which they own them. You want to explain it, Lisa? We worked on it together better than I am. This went on for a few months.
The bottom line is they already have a Metro Act permit, which was assigned to them from their predecessor, Fiber Technologies. They want to expand their network, and this amendment allows them to do that, subject to pulling any necessary construction permits as they do the construction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's 22032 then, correct?
It's 22034. You make that in the form of a motion?
Correct.
Looking for support?
Support.
I have motion, I have support.
Is there a requirement for a site plan review for when they submit? They don't have to pull a permit, but is there a requirement for a site plan review so the police department knows where their trucks are going to be parked and what the process is going to be for extending lines and
Just
things?
riding on the line.
There's no requirement for
They
that?
pretty much have carte blanche.
It's like a utility company.
Yeah.
Okay, in a community that I represent, we require a permit so that we know what's going on in our community. And I didn't know why we didn't require that, at least so that we know what's happening in our
I
community.
don't disagree with you, but it just historically, we have not. So it may be something that we can talk to Lisa about to potentially
Would you
enact.
like to know where they are?
No, paragraph 2 says it's conditioned upon them obtaining the necessary construction or engineering permits prior to expanding its facilities and maintaining its bond.
Yeah, I
Right,
think,
that addresses your concern?
It does, as long as we know.
well, that's what I'm getting at. It's just, we need to know that they may have a permit from the state that they may not necessarily tell us that they're going to be working on 59 between here and there, or whatever road it is. It would be nice if we could be in a communication.
Our
But we can't get the
ordinance,
road commission to do it either.
our ordinance provides that it requires our review.
Okay, not our permission, but at least they have to
permit.
give us notification that,
A permit from the township,
oh, okay.
like a construction permit. So it's handled administratively.
And I'm okay with that. I just, we just like to know where the trucks are going to be set and which lines are going to be pulling from and things like that.
And a lot of times we'll try to provide Well, we need to let them know where our utilities are to avoid
You
those
bet.
conflicts.
The ordinance requires the MISDIG, that they first check with MISDIG.
Right.
I'm pulling up the ordinance now,
Okay.
just so I can make sure.
When they submit a metro plan set for us to review, I mean, I've reviewed a lot of Metro
Yeah.
Act plan sets. We can't deny them.
That's
Under the
correct.
Metro Act.
Right.
So, as they stated, we would then basically look at where they're going to build, provide them all of our record drawings for the utilities that we have in that area, but that's about the limit of what we can do as far as.
Well, that's what I'm referring to, because I've caught several times when they're going to go right down along or over our sanitary sewer lines and things
yeah.
like that, so.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, good.
wholeheartely, but my point to this is that they just kind of, just like the other one, they just kind of come in and do their thing, and it's
Yeah.
after the fact sometimes, and I agree with you.
Need
When
to start a precedent now.
Yeah, around our utilities, we need to make sure that we're protected, because we're the ones that have to deal with the problem, and our
They
residents.
are supposed to be checking first. They are supposed to be doing MISDIG and their due diligence of where our utilities are. That is their responsibility.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we haven't had any major utility strikes from any of these Metro Act permits that I know of, and, at least in the last few years.
Be nice not to have one.
Yeah,
We provide them
continue
with
that. But thanks for your,
Don't wanna have one either.
I greatly appreciate that input, and we'll kind of address, yes.
I pulled up the Metro Act ordinance just so that I can directly address your question. There is a provision in the act and the ordinance that allows a township board to impose conditions on the issuance of a permit, which conditions shall be limited to the telecommunications provider's access and usage of the public right-of-way.
Okay, and that makes sense.
And there's a whole section about the construction and engineering permit
I'm
that's
just
required to be pulled.
Yeah.
So it does say, cannot commence construction in the township's public right-of-way without first obtaining a construction or engineering permit for construction within the public right-of-way.
Okay. It brings me to mind, because I've been stopped at Oxbow Lake Road and Elizabeth Lake Road for, it seems like, hours as they're doing the underground there. And I'm thinking, okay, I need to call the police department, because they can't hold traffic up for half an hour each direction. And so the police department should at least know where they're doing work.
Yeah, they're supposed to
That
notify
was
us.
gas lines and, they held traffic
Oh,
up.
they
That's
do.
what they do.
I didn't know which way they were going on any given signal. where they-
Neither did the
way
traffic, yeah.
Yeah.
Communications was poor at best.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay?
Really.
There are often times that he will ask me or I'll ask him, and we'll look at each other and go,
Yeah.
so I'm right there with you 1,000%, Mike.
Good.
So, okay, we'll see if we can kind of toughen that up a little bit one way or the other. Next item, are we good? Okay.
Did we vote?
We didn't vote.
We didn't vote, yeah.
You're getting
Well, see,
tired.
we were going to go right over it.
You're getting tired.
I know I'm getting tired. Long day. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Powell.
Okay, nobody made the motion yet?
No, go ahead.
I move
Wait,
resolution.
I thought
What?
Scott made the motion.
Okay.
Did you make?
No, he didn't.
No, you didn't.
No, he didn't.
No, he just asked a question. Go.
All right, I move
I'm
resolution.
sorry, wait.
You did not make the motion.
I had the Clerk Noble made the motion already.
I thought someone.
No, that was on
That was the other
the
one.
other one. That was on the Metro Act one. This is the,
We're still on Metro.
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry, I
We're
beg
on the
your
Metro
pardon.
Act.
We're on Metro. So
Powell's
Clerk
got
Two.
Noble made
Yep,
the
yep,
motion.
yep, yep. Boy, we're all tired.
I'll support Clerk Noble's motion.
I already have support as well, but hold on, my computer just locked up.
We'll see, we started talking.
I thought there was a motion, just not a vote.
Yeah.
I had motion and support, but not vote yet.
Well, all in favor?
Aye.
It's done. Okay, moving on. Okay, you can always tell when it gets late. Resolution 22030 affirming a White Lake Township Board's position on the Oakland County Transportation millage.
Oh, yes.
Before us and before the voters out there, there is going to be a proposed countywide millage, which will impact everyone that lives and owns a business and owns property, anything that property tax is levied upon within White Lake Township. And it is a countywide millage of .95 mils, which will roughly bring out of White Lake Township's coffers $1.3 million a year, plus or minus. And what we get in return for this, I'm not 100% sure. I've been trying to figure that out and do the math problem, because currently we have a transportation system of which we are part of, which is this township board took it into consideration along with Highland Township and Waterford Township to form WODA about 3 years ago now, and has been running effectively and serving the public in these areas. So we, as a community, along with our sister communities, realize the necessity for transportation, in particular our seniors and disabled. So this community, no way, shape, or form, because it was unanimous vote that we agreed to go forward with WODA, is not against transportation. But we believe that transportation is community-specific, and therefore the communities themselves should be able to determine their own destiny and their level of involvement and costs that they want to have in the system that they have to service what niche of resident that they need to. Before you is the resolution that basically explains that we are in opposition of this, and it does not allow us to opt out nor other communities. In November 22, taxpayers, both business and residents, will be required to pay a new .95 mil to Oakland County tax for 10 years. Whereas this plan will collect approximately 16 million in total, or 1.3 million in annual taxes from White Lake residents and businesses. And whereas, as proposed, the revenue from the millage would be distributed to Oakland County, the Suburban Mobility Authority for Regional Transportation, which is SMART, the North Oakland Transportation Authority, NOTA, the Older Persons Communication, and Western Oakland Transportation Authority, WODA, which is the organization that we belong to. Whereas countywide, this new tax is expected to generate a total of $66 million annually from every Oakland County community, and county leaders have indicated that no comprehensive plan exists detailing the services to be provided, which provides no service to many North and West Oakland County communities. And whereas the proposed millage would not only allow the community of Oakland to opt out, and whereas the White Lake Township Board supports a community-based transit system matched to the specific needs of its taxpayers rather than a more costly regional system that may not meet the needs of our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the White Lake Township, yes, did I read something wrong?
Yeah, I'm understanding it's 1.6.
Well, that's saying, I'm just curious, you read this resolution online?
16 million over its lifetime, it's 1.3
Okay, but it says
million.
16 million in annual taxes. I think that,
it's 1.33 in annual taxes.
the second whereas just said 16 million in annual
It
taxes.
should say
That can't be right.
1.33.
Yeah, it says 16
Yeah.
in mine as well.
Okay, it should say 1.33. 16 million is the total over the life of the assessment. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the White Lake Township Board adopts this resolution to share facts regarding Oakland County's proposed .95 mil for regional transportation, and to respectfully request that Oakland County leaders thoughtfully and responsibly prepare a plan in collaboration with all Oakland County communities. Be it further resolved that the Township Clerk shall forward a copy of this resolution to the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, Oakland County Executive, State Representative, and State Senator. Questions, comments discussion before we vote?
I'd like to make a comment. We spend 1.6 million, correct, on our WODA system?
The entire
For the four-
multi-community.
four Highland, White Lake, Waterford, and
Walled Lake.
Walled Lake. And we're going to be doling out 5 million from our four communities to get 2 million
Over
back.
5 million, almost
To get-
5.9.
Yeah, and they're going to give us, that's bad math, correct?
They're going to give us 2 million. We're going to give them 5 point something, and they're going to give us 2, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a huge proponent, as you know, but
It's a math problem.
yeah, it's a bad one.
Okay.
Can you please repeat the motion?
Do we need to make that
I just-
correction
I'm sorry.
in the resolution? Do we need to correct that one line?
I'll make sure that's remedied, yeah.
Oh, I thought you did. Rick, you
When that copy goes, I read the whole resolution. more or less.
I'm not
So-
asking you to read it again.
No, I'm not going to. Okay.
It's corrected right here.
Yeah, I corrected it also, and we'll correct it on the copy.
And
So
when you
Okay.
approve the resolution, it should be approved as amended.
it'll be approved as amended. Okay, so I would like, I will make a motion to adopt Resolution 22-030 with the amended dollar amount. And I'll make that in the form of a resolution, motion.
Or,
I have motion, I have support. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the
Adjournment.
No, it's not. It's the Construction Advisory Committee update.
Oh, I thought it was trustee comments.
no,
I thought you guys were giving up trustee comments tonight.
Are we? Getting late.
Could happen.
Good try, Lisa.
you want me to start?
Sure.
All right, so Rick had formed that committee last board meeting, and Mr. Powell, myself, Sean O'Neill, and Anthony Noble have been getting together. We did 6 Zoom meetings, meet and greets, with 6 different potential construction management firms. These were Zoom meetings that lasted anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes. Very interesting how much information you can get from a 30 to 40-minute Zoom call, really about how they communicate with themselves and how they communicated with us. We kind of did an unofficial ranking, and I think all 4 of us were right on board. We kind of all agreed. But from this point, we want you to know that Daniel Redstone has created an RFQ
They don't know
for
who Daniel
the.
Redstone is, I don't think.
Does
Yes, we
anyone
met
not
with-
know? who
Everyone
Daniel-
knows?
We had a meeting, yes.
Yeah, they met him.
Thank you.
So he's created an RFQ for the public safety building. Our next goal is to get an RFQ for the township, a new township hall. And that's kind of what we're working on. One big change is Mr. Redstone was under the impression that we were going to build the public safety building first. We kind of redirected him with the thought in mind that we want to put both buildings up at the same time, which he agreed with was a very good idea to save costs. His recommendation was that we use an architect that he works with well, such that both buildings can be designed using as many common materials and specs as possible. And so he has given us a name of a firm. We haven't contacted them yet. That just came our way. But with that said, our next goal is to get an RFQ prepared for the township hall that the board could approve. Send those out, and once those come back from potential construction managers, our little committee will recommend at least a few of them to come in front of the board so that you can all meet these companies, ask your questions, and eventually choose a common construction management firm for both buildings.
Excellent.
It's been great working with these guys. Do you guys want to add anything? Mike, Anthony, Sean?
Certainly, just quickly, there is some advantage, obviously, of having the same construction manager with both buildings, because then when one building gets done with their foundations, it can move directly into the next building with foundations. You eliminate mobilization, and you've also increased the size of the project, so it's more appealable to a contractor to keep their prices as low as possible. It's a very common technique in order to get the best prices you can for a construction project. So that's why we're recommending the same construction manager do both buildings. We won't necessarily make the same recommendation for architects. So we're really fond of and very confident in Dan Redstone for the police fire building, because it's a very specialized type construction. However, the township hall is an office building, really, with different spaces.
Keep in mind, Mike.
Yep.
Redstone doesn't have the staff or the time to do it anyway.
Correct.
The Township
And
Hall.
we challenged Dan Redstone to tell us whether or not he had the staff to be able to handle 2 buildings, and he agreed he did not. So he did have a name that he would suggest. However, we've dealt with other architects that we would like to get their input on their availability of designing the other building, certainly in collaboration with Dan Redstone, so that we make sure the 2 buildings look like a campus, so that the same materials and not necessarily looking like the library, obviously. So that being done, we are progressing. We wanted to make sure that this whole board had an update so that you knew what was happening behind the scenes. It's been very, very good. The 3 of us have been working together, 4 of us, with Sean. I wanted to thank Sean for his leadership, because he's done the vast majority of the hard work, putting together the coordination. But we're pulling things together to be able to make a recommendation to this board to be able to proceed.
Yeah, I just want to thank Sean, and it was went relatively pretty quick. We're all pretty much on the same page with if you did the ranking, and very professional companies, and they're really receptive getting back to us and did very nice presentations. But Sean put in a lot of heavy lifting earlier on, so thanks, Sean, for doing all that outside your normal scope.
So will that ranking be shared with us?
Yeah, it's just more of a
And then-
meet, more of a meet and greet, and then we'll do the RFPs. We'll
And then we'll come in person
and
and
then we'll bring them in for
degrees or two,
yeah.
something like that, okay.
Yeah, we'll narrow it down.
I think it was to try to expedite the process, because there may be some people that we may just not necessarily feel they're the right fit. And I think that Mike's got real good experience with these types of folks. Anthony's been around it. Sean knows the right questions from a planning aspect, and the money guy is here. So you've got the right group looking at the people to kind of flush out who we want to get in concert with this type of project. And there are a few architects that we need to have some further discussion over. So anything else to add on that?
Just one thing, I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that this committee wanted to make sure that this was an item on the agenda every month.
Thank you.
So that we did not miss representing you guys.
I really
believe the
appreciate that.
goal really, and we're beginning just really quickly, we're moving along through the RFP process with Dan Redstone. The goal is to bring the draft RFP to the board for the November meeting so that you guys can all take action. You should all be putting the same RFP out together. And we've moved ahead through this whole process with unification, and I think that is certainly the theme and the plan to continue. So that way you're all up to speed on what's being sent out, and then we're all on board with the timeline going forward. I think we'll hopefully figure out what that RFP will look like, send it out in November. We're getting into a tough time of year to be asking for people to respond, but it's probably going to be a 30-day window to get those RFPs back, and then we'll go back and go through all the responses, rank them. All that information is going to be available, but I think the goal of the committee is for the 3 board members that are, I guess, voting members of the committee to, come up with a short list of then firms for you to interview. But obviously, all the responses are public information and able to be shared. So that's kind of what we're looking for between now and, interviews maybe in January.
Right. Very, very quickly, because there was a difference in terminology, and for the public and for the rest of you, Mike was saying RFQs. The RFQs were really done by Zoom. So we analyzed the request for qualifications in the Zoom meeting, in which we're shortlisting those. The RFP that Sean talked about is request for proposal. So we're looking for numbers, we're looking for staff allocated, timing, all of that stuff, and actual proposals from these people so we can make representation to you guys, to the board.
Right, the whole board needs to be included in that process.
That'll be part of the process, because none of the proposals will go forward without the approval of the board.
Right.
So,
Just a little bit of discussion on the RFP approval process. Obviously, it's got to come to the board, but I think we need to talk a little bit about who's going to review what in that final RFP. Because it's a legal document and it's a long document. And we've been using a little bit of Lisa's firm and a little bit of WWRP. And I know you have concerns about who's going to do what.
Well, it needs to be clear and consistent. So I shouldn't review just one section of it and then John Gaber reviewing the rest of it. I think either we both review the document or you choose somebody who's going to be the reviewer of the document. But this last round, I was asked to just review one section. And I indicated in an email to Sean, I only reviewed this section because you told me this section is what you wanted me to review. But let me know if I'm reviewing the rest or if John Gaber's reviewing the rest. So I just think clarity was my concern.
Okay.
I won't be offended either way.
Okay, were you involved at all in the public safety building RFP?
That's what I'm talking about.
This RFP actually will can include both.
Okay.
It'll be.
It's the
both
one
of
that
them
just
in the-
went around that
Right.
I was asked just to review one section of
And
it.
it was
You haven't looked at
Dan.
the Township Hall one. Yeah, the draft.
So the draft RFP, we're going to try to amalgamate everything into one RFP. So both projects with their descriptions and specs will all be in that same, and it's like a 55, 60 page document. It is good reading, or it's going to be.
And it's got a lot of contractual terms in it.
It does.
It's really important we read all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we're going to need to decide as a board, I guess, which firm we want to use to approve these things. And my fear is if we have two firms do it, you're going to get two different opinions. It's not going to work.
So, your packet normally goes out to you about a week before the meeting, 6 days before the meeting. I think we would like to give you guys like 2 weeks. Like our hope is, in November, the meeting's pushed back a week. It's the 4th Tuesday. So our hope is that by like 2 weeks ahead of that meeting, you guys have this, or at least a week and a half. So you have a few extra days more time with this document to kind of pour over it, because you're going to have all your other packet stuff to go through as well. So that's something I didn't ask you guys, but it just kind of dawned on me that we probably shouldn't drop a 60-page document that's pretty involved on everyone with the traditional packet stuff. So I'll maybe self-impose a deadline of a few days earlier than normal to get it out to everybody.
So if I can offer my comments back to Mike's concern, I think that whoever is going to assist with the development from the legal standpoint should be the person who drafts and/or approves the RFP. It should follow through. You shouldn't have one person do the review of the RFP and then another person follow through. So I think that's the bigger issue. If you've decided that you're going to continue with Williams, Ruby, and Plunkett, then I'd say then let him also review the RFP.
I agree.
Yes, me too.
Rick?
Yeah, I have a comfort level with them. They seem to be well-versed in what they are doing. I always feel good when Lisa looks at things and then as such. So these guys are very construction contractually oriented.
Right.
And it's kind of their area of expertise. I wouldn't say I'm not going to say they can't do municipal law, but Lisa really is all about municipal law. These guys are really in the contractual agreement, and it's a specialty that they're involved in. And I think it's in the best interest of the township to pursue that course. Agree.
So the only thing I would ask is that we somehow loop Lisa in and memo to her, because she always has our overall picture and our overall best interest in council. So she somehow has to be memoed
I've been
or
communicating with Lisa.
communicating with her. She has to be looped in somehow.
So maybe after John
draft.
Gaber's comments, then I could just do a final kind of, make sure it's consistent with our ordinances.
Cursory
and-
overview.
That makes sense.
Kind of like before we were doing Lisa. So I try to keep you in the loop when we have those.
Okay.
Good deal.
All right.
I didn't have anything else.
Either. Elizabeth Lake Road. When are we paving, Mike?
Well, we did have some conversations with the road commission about schedule. Nice thing is, we won't have to meet, it's not a special schedule per se, we won't have the GI meetings that sometimes the road commission projects will have. It'll basically proceed as like a development project. So we'll just have that level of review for permits. They did voice some concerns about construction next season with some of the other construction that they had going on. So we still got to kind of figure out time frame and kind of how we're going to, really staging that project is going to be some discussions that we got to have. Are we going to close that route completely down to allow the contractor to build the roundabout without traffic coming through? I mean, you could limit traffic coming into the assisted living
They have another
facility
means through the north, though,
from
too.
the south, and then you got to allow access to the library and Kroger, obviously. So there's some things that we got to work out, but we're trying to have those conversations with the road commission so we can get a schedule.
And we now have a archaeological.
Yeah, that's one thing we were trying to avoid, but the SHPO requirements for the environmental checkoffs are going to require it. So we got that in process now.
Find
so.
something under a rock?
It cracks me up that the State Historic Preservation Office has to look at this when there's just nothing historic there. It's vacant property.
God
But-
grows pumpkins there.
I mean, you
That's
never
historic.
know. Woolly mammoth was found in White Lake.
right.
I mean,
Yeah,
you never know.
yeah, you never know.
Up on 59.
But that's underway. And,
No, we found a boulder the size of a Volkswagen underneath the road.
Right,
So-
right. We know that's there, or was, yeah.
Found that right away.
But no, I thank you. But it is progressing along, correct?
Yes,
Because I
correct.
know we've been, and I
Yeah.
also know
And
that
then-
the roundabout bids are going back out here. if-
Yeah, and that's probably one of the projects that the road commission was talking about with work next year that we would need to kind of coordinate with. So we got to kind of figure out like what's going to go first, who's going to go first, what makes the most sense from a traffic impact study to the community, or from a traffic impact standpoint. So these are the things we're trying to work out so we can kind of get you a schedule. Right now, I'm kind of thinking next year will be a planning year based on the initial feedback that we've got. And then we'd go like later in the season, about this time, maybe November, December, for bids on Elizabeth Lake Road. And then hopefully that 2024 construction would make more sense.
All right, well, we'll have some conversation
Yep.
about that. So-
Yeah. Now, the grant obligations, we just looked at that just to make sure that wasn't going to be a problem. The money has to be spent by 2030, so there's plenty of time in that window to do that. But I know obviously the wish will be sooner rather tthan later.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that end of it. We're going to head into trustee comments now. Andrea?
Thank you. I'd like to thank you for everyone coming tonight wearing pink and awareness for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Just two quick little trivias about breast cancer. One in eight people, or women, will develop breast cancer. And I found this very interesting for you gentlemen in the room. In 2022, 2,170 men will be diagnosed with breast cancer. And 5,300 of them, or 530, can't do my numbers tonight, will die of breast cancer. So we need to all get ourselves, not only the females, but the males also. 2 weeks ago, if I'm thinking properly, I joined my friends at the Daughters of American Revolution, the Lydia Barnes chapter. They're out of Waterford, Clarkson area. We were up at the White Lake Cemetery cleaning tombstones / graves, wherever you may call them. It was we spent 3 hours, really rewarding to see gravestones, tombstones, whatever you may call them, from like the 1800s come alive. We put this approved chemical on them, scrubbed them, watered them down. Seriously, within an hour, you could see information that we hadn't seen in for years. They're gonna continue coming on. I'd like to thank Anthony for doing a little note for us, because in the past, they've had some challenges with, people coming up and saying, why are you touching this grave from the 1800s? So he knew that we were doing it, and he came out. The family of Reverend George Borgman, who was a captain of the 15th Michigan Infantry, should be proud of Anthony's hard work, because you can now read all the information on the tombstone / gravestone. No, it's I was wanting to do it more, because it was a nice fall day. making my family's cemetery, I'll be honest with you, that's why I take pride in it. I wish they would go out to other cemeteries and make them look pretty, and once you spray this chemical on them, it just continues to make them look prettier. So, one last comment, November 8th, go out and vote. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Ruggles?
Yeah. The Planning Commission met on October 6th. All the items that were on the agenda came before the Township Board tonight. We'll be meeting again on October 20th, and looks like at that meeting, we'll be looking at master plan firm reviews. Outside of that, I understand that the trunk or treat was a great success.
Huge success.
So that's great news. Great to see it with a little, looks like a little more.
We need more donuts.
More involvement. More people showed up.
I don't need any more of your donuts in my house.
That's all.
Can you people stop talking about the donuts that he promised? He promised to bring them and he never did.
I have plenty to share with you.
Getting tired of donuts myself.
What? Mr. Powell?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I do want to, something that kind of struck my attention when we got further down the agenda tonight. It would have been very helpful if we had had the car wash before Avalon. For a car wash and their very small investment, they've offered $20,000 in community benefit, but a $140 million project can only muster $100,000. I would have liked to have known that and presented that to the public when Mr. Galbraith was standing before us. That's number one. Number two, I really request that the residents get out and vote on November 8th, and those that can't come out on November 8th, please get an absentee ballot and vote. My personal opinion is that we should be as informed as we possibly can on every single person running, and especially the proposals, because it really is going to impact our daily lives, these proposals. My personal opinion is to vote no on each and every one of them. I don't believe they deserve our support. That's my personal opinion, and thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Trustee Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. It's late, so I will whiz through quickly. Library update, I just want to share that they have a very robust fall programming, and including new this year, you will be able to trick or treat at the library during regular library hours, and they'll provide goodie bags, and including allergy-free goodie bags, so that's something fun and new that the library is offering this year. It is breast cancer awareness, as you see most of us wearing pink. I don't think there's anybody that breast cancer unfortunately doesn't touch in some way, shape, or form. I personally have loved ones, and my PSA every October, to ditto off of Andrea, is that it does affect men, women, and pets. So please check everybody. Your dog can have breast cancer. Mine personally did, and is a breast cancer survivor. So please do self-exams, men, women, and dogs. Next is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The color for that is purple, and I invite all residents to show their support by wearing purple every Thursday through the month of October. And Michigan has a 24/7 crisis hotline if you need help. And of course, if you're in immediate danger, please call 911. It was a great trunk or treat. It was a fun night. It was great to see some of my fellow colleagues and a ton of adorable kids in costumes, and it was a great success. So thank you to everybody that made that possible. I want to welcome, we have many new CERT members added to our team, including my colleague, Mr. Roman. So welcome to CERT. It's so much fun, and my husband and I are glad that you're on our team now, and we look forward to being deployed with you in the future. Of course, I think you'll hear from each and every one of us to get out the vote on November 8th. It is also Veterans Day on November 11th. I believe that there'll be a ceremony planned, and I just wanted to mention the public is welcome to join us that day. It's a lovely cemetery ceremony at White Lake Cemetery. It's normally 11 o'clock. I haven't seen anything on it yet, but it's normally 11 a.m. I want to thank our local White Lake Police Department and Fire Department for going an extra mile for a child in our community, along with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department and our locally owned Lakeside Towing. They put on a wonderful celebration for a child that is battling cancer, and they absolutely went the extra mile for that child, and I want to personally thank them. That's about it. Last, everybody have a happy and safe Halloween. Our police department does a great job patrolling that night, and they make it fun. Some of the patrol cars play music and stuff, so wave to them. They're out there to keep you safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roman.
I always thank the residents that tune into these board meetings, and especially to you that come in person.
Our three loyals.
Thanks for staying for the whole meeting, guys. We appreciate it. I just wanted to mention something about Trunk or Treat, because it was amazing, and I couldn't believe how many kids we had there. It was really just a great event. Kids had so much fun. So thanks to everyone that helped. Scott, that was very generous of you for the donuts and cider. For those of you like me that didn't get a donut, just understand that Mr. Ruggles is having some supply chain issues with those materials, so it's not really his fault.
So actually, I forgot, I'm gonna give Scott a shameless plug here as well, as we all are. The Huron Valley Optimist Club also had a wonderful Autumn Fest, and his grandstand barn is open, so we all keep talking about his donuts, so stop in. So give my friend here a shameless plug.
You done, Mike?
I'm done.
Okay. Mr. Noble.
As you know, we're in the height of the election absentee ballot, so we're working nonstop, and I'd like to thank the staff, Brian out there, who is going out, contacting businesses to feed our election workers. So tremendous job, Brian. Also, the beard, I do not like the beard, but it goes to a good cause. It goes to Chief Keller's No Shave November. I'll probably make it to November 1st. But the money goes towards, as last year, the child that was attacked by two pit bulls, I believe, raised over $40,000 that went to that family. So it's a wonderful cause, and I commend the White Lake Police Department under the chief's leadership for having these outreach programs or fundraising events and working with our community and such programs like that. It's very important, and it allows the community to get to know our police department as individuals, just not as an organization. Thank you.
Very good. Well, not to repeat, but Trunk or Treat was great. We had a good time. Mike never looked so good. Okay. I was told he looks like somebody's father. I don't know who that kid was, but we got to find that out.
Oh, yeah.
You look like my dad. Okay. Everything was a hit, and I know it was a hit because Sunday morning at about 7:45, when I was out there starting to take down all the parking setup from there, my wife and I went out and started taking everything down. I got out there and there was candy wrappers all over the place, and some little girl lost purple feathers. I don't know, but I'll tell you what, it looked like an ostrich shed itself around the whole yard there. So we picked up everything, cleaned it up, 2 big garbage bags full of stuff, not to mention the stuff that blows off in general. So we kind of made it through that, and then later that afternoon, Greg called me. I called Greg, rather, and to let him know that, I took care of all the stuff, and he normally answers the phone. Hi, Rick, how you doing? He answered the phone. That was great. Yeah. He was over the top. So it was really a success for the Historical Society and a continued interest in our community. And I always recommend everybody, if you don't know anything about the Historical Society, get out there, find out what it's all about. You might learn something interesting about your community that you just didn't know. And those things are always very interesting to have. Plus, the light up of these kids' faces was amazing, and I just appreciate PD and fire showing up out there. That was great. I had fire throw their drone up. We got a couple of drone pictures, and it was really cool. So it was all a good time and a good cause. On a personal note, I'm going to be a grandfather any day now.
How cool.
Yeah. So first time and hopefully all goes well. My daughter's a little nervous because it snowed this morning, and she had to drive to the hospital, which is about 45 minutes away. And she lives on the eastern side of the UP, and as, I don't know if any of you watched the news. But Marquette got dumped on. And so it's coming, okay? So be prepared. And I'd like to thank everyone here, and I'd like to thank all my board members again for your commitment to this community, and the support staff, and the chiefs, and everybody that makes this community hum. So recorder, video, residents, looked like a mouse ran across the floor, but that was your shoe. Okay. Anyways, it's all good. Thank you so much, and God bless. And we'll make a motion to adjourn. Looking for support? Support. I have motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Thank you.